The moment Ethan Cole saw the bruise on Maya Reed's wrist, he knew he was looking at a dead woman walking. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But soon. He'd seen it before. The careful movements, the forced smile, the way her eyes tracked the door like prey watching for a predator. He'd ignored it once, years ago, and that mistake still woke him at 3 in the morning, drenched in sweat and guilt. This time would be different. This time, he wouldn't look away. Stay with me until the end of this story. Like this video and comment with your city so I can see how far this journey travels. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and yesterday's grease. Ethan Cole sat in the corner booth, the same one he'd claimed every Tuesday and Friday morning for the past 3 months. The vinyl seat had a tear near the edge that caught his jacket every time he slid in, and the table wobbled if you put too much weight on the left side. He liked it anyway. Predictable. Contained. A pocket of quiet in a city that never shut up. Newark at dawn was a study in contradictions. Garbage trucks rumbling past brownstones where someone's grandmother still swept her stoop at 5:30. Streetlights flickering out just as the sun bled orange through the gaps between buildings. The diner sat on the corner of Market and some street Ethan could never remember the name of, wedged between a laundromat that never seemed open and a bodega that never seemed closed. He'd built his first business 3 blocks from here, back when he was 26 and stupid enough to think confidence and capital were the same thing. That company had collapsed within 18 months, but he'd learned more from that failure than from the 3 successful ventures that followed. Now, at 41, Ethan Cole was the kind of wealthy that didn't need to prove itself. No flash, no ego, just the quiet weight of knowing he could write a check that would change someone's life and never notice the money gone. But wealth was a strange insulation. It kept you warm and kept you distant. The bell above the door chimed. Ethan didn't look up. He was halfway through the business section of the Times, reading about a merger he'd predicted 6 months ago when Maya appeared at his table. Coffee? Please. She poured without meeting his eyes, the same way she always did. Maya Reed was maybe 30, maybe younger, the kind of tired that aged you in ways a birth certificate couldn't track. Dark hair pulled back tight enough to give him a headache just looking at it. Pale skin that had probably been pretty once, before whatever life she was living had leached the color out. But it was her hands Ethan noticed first. They were always moving. Adjusting her apron, tucking invisible strands of hair behind her ear, touching the edge of the coffee pot like she needed to confirm it was real. Small, restless movements that spoke of nerves wound too tight. Anything else? She asked. The usual. She nodded and turned away. That's when he saw it. The bruise on her left wrist, dark purple fading to yellow at the edges, roughly the size and shape of fingers. 4 of them, maybe a thumb on the other side. She'd tried to cover it with foundation, but the fluorescent lights overhead were merciless. Ethan's coffee suddenly tasted like ash. He watched her walk back to the kitchen, watched the way she moved through the space like she was trying not to take up too much room. Shoulders curved inward. Steps small and quiet. The body language of someone who'd learned that being noticed meant being hurt. Christ. He folded the newspaper, his appetite gone. The diner was nearly empty this early, just a couple of truckers at the counter nursing hangovers and a kid in scrubs who'd clearly just finished a night shift. The cook, a bear of a man named Eddie, who'd been here since the place opened in 1987, worked the grill with the efficient boredom of someone who'd made 10,000 eggs exactly the same way. Maya returned with his breakfast. 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast, bacon crispy enough to shatter. She set the plate down with the same careful precision she did everything else. Thank you, Ethan said. She nodded, already turning away. Maya. She froze. It was the first time he'd said her name out loud, though he'd known it for weeks. It was stitched on her uniform, right above the pocket. Yeah? She didn't quite look at him. Her eyes landed somewhere near his left shoulder. You okay? Stupid question. Dangerous question. The kind of question that could make things worse if you didn't know what you were doing. But Ethan had asked it anyway, because the alternative was going back to his newspaper and pretending he hadn't seen what he'd seen. I'm fine. The words came out automatic, rehearsed. Why? No reason, you just seem... He paused, trying to find language that wouldn't spook her. Tired. Double shift yesterday. She touched her wrist, realized what she was doing, stopped. I'm good, really. She walked away before he could say anything else. Ethan ate his breakfast without tasting it, his mind already working the problem. He recognized the pattern because he'd seen it before, 7 years ago, in a different city with a different woman. Her name had been Lauren, and she'd worked at the gym where Ethan trained. Bruises that appeared and disappeared. Excuses that got more elaborate as the injuries got worse. Ethan had noticed, had worried, had ultimately done nothing because it wasn't his business, and who was he to interfere in someone else's life? 3 weeks later, Lauren was dead. Blunt force trauma to the head. Her boyfriend claimed she'd fallen down the stairs. The police had their doubts, but doubt wasn't proof, and the case went nowhere. Ethan had attended the funeral. He'd stood in the back, anonymous and useless, and made himself a promise he'd broken every day since. Next time, he wouldn't look away. The bell chimed again. The man who walked in was maybe 6'2", built like he'd done manual labor most of his life, but recently let himself go soft around the middle. Early 40s, thinning hair, wearing a jacket that had been expensive 3 years ago. He had the kind of face that looked friendly until you really looked at it. Something mean around the mouth, something cold in the eyes. He scanned the diner, spotted Maya refilling coffee for the truckers, and smiled. It wasn't a good smile. Ethan watched as the man crossed directly to her, moving with the territorial confidence of someone who owned what he was approaching. Maya saw him coming. Her whole body went rigid, that coffee pot trembling slightly in her hand. "Hey, baby." The man's voice carried across the quiet space, too loud, too familiar. He reached out and touched her lower back, his hand sliding down to rest just above her hip. Possessive, claiming. Maya's face did something complicated. Smiled, but didn't. "Derek, what are you doing here? Can't a guy visit his girl at work?" Derek leaned in, kissed her cheek. His hand stayed exactly where it was. "You didn't answer my texts." "I was busy. I told you I had a double." "Yeah, you said." His tone shifted, friendly surface over something sharp underneath. "Seems like you're always busy lately. Starting to wonder if you're avoiding me." "Don't be stupid." The words came out wrong, too sharp, too defensive. Maya caught herself, softened her voice. "I'm just tired. You know how it gets." "I know." Derek's smile widened, but his eyes stayed flat. "That's why I'm here. To take care of you. Make sure you're doing okay." One of the truckers glanced over, then quickly looked away. Eddie, at the grill, kept his back turned. The kid in scrubs was asleep with his head on the table. No one was going to do anything. Ethan felt something cold and familiar settle in his chest. Rage, maybe. Or recognition. Hard to tell the difference sometimes. Derek was still talking, his voice dropping lower, intimate in a way that made Ethan's skin crawl. "Why don't you take a break? Come sit with me for a minute." "I can't. I'm working." 5 minutes. Not a request. "Derek, 5 minutes." His hand tightened on her hip. Ethan saw Maya wince, saw her glance toward Eddie for help that wasn't coming, saw her shoulders drop in defeat. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, just let me—" The coffee pot slipped. It happened fast. Maya's hand jerked, the pot tilted, and suddenly hot coffee was everywhere. It splashed across the counter, onto Derek's jacket, across his shoes. He jumped back with a curse, shaking liquid off his hands. "Jesus Christ, Maya! What the hell is wrong with you?" I'm sorry. She was already grabbing napkins, trying to clean up the mess, her movements frantic and clumsy. "I didn't mean to, You just what? You can't hold a fucking coffee pot without spilling it?" Derek's voice rose, drawing attention now. The truckers were definitely watching. Eddie had turned around, spatula in hand. "You know how much this jacket cost? I said I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't dry clean coffee stains, Maya." Ethan stood up. He didn't plan it, didn't think about it. His body just moved, carrying him across the diner before his brain could offer an opinion on whether this was a good idea. "Excuse me." His voice came out level, almost friendly. "I think it was an accident." Derek turned, sizing Ethan up with the quick, aggressive assessment of someone who'd been in his share of bar fights. "And you are?" "Just a customer. Looks like the lady didn't mean to spill. No harm done, right?" "No harm." Derek's laugh was ugly. "She ruined a $300 jacket, and you're telling me no harm done?" Ethan reached for his wallet, pulled out 400, set them on the counter. There. Now you can buy a new one and we can all get on with our morning. The diner went quiet. Derek stared at the money, then at Ethan, then back at the money. Something dangerous moved behind his eyes. I don't need your charity, man. Not charity, just solving a problem. Ethan kept his voice casual, non-confrontational. He'd learned a long time ago that fights started when someone felt backed into a corner. Give them an exit, and sometimes they'd take it. No reason for anyone to be upset over spilled coffee. You think this is about the coffee? Derek stepped closer, invading Ethan's space in a way that was clearly meant to intimidate. You think I give a shit about the jacket? I think you're having a bad morning and taking it out on someone who doesn't deserve it. Ethan held his ground. I think whatever's happening between you two is your business, but in public we treat people with respect, even when we're angry. Derek's jaw clenched. For a second, Ethan thought he'd miscalculated, that this was going to get physical right here in the middle of the diner. Then Derek turned to Maya, who was standing frozen behind the counter, napkins clutched in her white-knuckled hands. We'll talk about this later, Derek said quietly. The words landed like a threat. He grabbed the money off the counter, shoved it in his pocket, and walked out without looking back. The bell chimed cheerfully as the door swung shut. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Maya was staring at him, her expression unreadable. Fear, maybe. Or anger. Hard to tell. You shouldn't have done that, she said finally. Probably not. You don't understand. I understand enough. Ethan returned to his booth, picked up his coffee with a hand that was steadier than he expected. I understand that you're scared, and he's counting on that. I understand that this isn't the first time, and it won't be the last unless something changes. You don't know anything about my life. You're right, I don't. He met her eyes, held them. But I know what I saw, and I know you deserve better than whatever that was. Maya's face did something complicated again. For a second, Ethan thought she might cry. Then she squared her shoulders, lifted her chin, and went back to cleaning up the spilled coffee. The rest of his breakfast was silent. Ethan spent the rest of the day trying to focus on work and failing. His office was in a converted warehouse in the Ironbound, all exposed brick and industrial windows, the kind of space that had been cheap when he bought it 15 years ago and was now worth triple. He employed 17 people, most of them working remotely, but kept the physical space because he liked having somewhere to go that wasn't his too big, too empty apartment. Today, though, the office felt like a cage. He sat at his desk, laptop open, staring at spreadsheets that refused to make sense. His business, venture capital, mostly tech startups that needed funding and guidance to scale, usually absorbed his attention completely. Finding the next disruptor, the next innovation, the next team hungry enough and smart enough to change their corner of the world. It was puzzle solving at the highest level, and Ethan was good at it. But today, all he could see was Maya's wrist. That bruise, those careful, frightened movements. Derek. He opened a new browser tab and typed in Derek Shaw, Newark, NJ. The search returned nothing useful. A few LinkedIn profiles, none matching the man from the diner. Some old newspaper articles about high school sports. A Derek Shaw who'd been arrested for DUI in 2019, but the mugshot didn't match. Ethan tried different combinations. Derek Shaw assault. Derek Shaw domestic violence. Derek Shaw restraining order. Nothing. Either Derek was smart enough to keep his violence private, or he'd been lucky enough to avoid consequences. Probably both. Ethan closed the laptop, rubbed his eyes. This was crazy. He didn't know these people. Maya was a waitress he'd exchanged maybe 50 words with over 3 months. Derek was a stranger who might be exactly what he seemed. An asshole, sure, but not necessarily a criminal. Except Ethan had seen the fear in Maya's face, had watched her body language shift the second Derek walked in, had heard the threat buried in those final words. We'll talk about this later. He knew what later meant. His phone buzzed, text from Rachel, his business partner, and the only person who could get away with calling him out on his bullshit. Rachel, you coming to the Brennan meeting, or are you going to bail like you did on the last 3? Ethan had completely forgotten about the Brennan meeting. They were considering a significant investment in a biotech startup, and Rachel had spent 2 weeks putting together the analysis. He should be there. He needed to be there. Ethan. On my way. He grabbed his jacket, headed for the door, and lasted exactly 4 steps before turning around. This was stupid, reckless, the kind of thing that ended badly for everyone involved. But he pulled up a different browser, logged into a database he paid for but rarely used, a private investigator tool that aggregated public records, property ownership, court filings, all the digital breadcrumbs people left behind without realizing it. He searched Derek Shaw again, this time adding filters. Age range 38 to 45, location Newark and surrounding areas, any criminal or civil filings in the last 10 years. 3 results. The first Derek Shaw was 62 and living in a nursing home. The second had moved to California in 2018. The third, Derek Michael Shaw, age 43, current address 447 South Orange Avenue. 2 domestic disturbance calls in the past 18 months. Both dismissed after the complainant declined to press charges. 1 restraining order filed and withdrawn within 48 hours. Employed by Garden State Construction as a project manager until 6 months ago, now listed as independent contractor. Ethan read the report twice. 2 domestic disturbance calls. A restraining order that disappeared almost as fast as it appeared. Classic pattern. Victim gets scared enough to reach out for help, then gets scared into taking it back. He saved the file, closed the browser, and sat there feeling like a creep and a stalker, and also like someone who'd just confirmed what he already knew. Maya was in trouble. Real trouble. The kind that started with bruises and ended with a closed casket. His phone buzzed again. Rachel. Where are you? Ethan. Something came up. Handle Brennan without me. Your instincts are better anyway. Rachel. Are you okay? Ethan. Yeah, just dealing with something personal. Rachel. You don't have personal things. That's literally your whole personality. Ethan. Thanks for the psychological assessment. I'll be in tomorrow. He pocketed his phone before she could respond, grabbed a notepad, and started writing. But the diner was different at night. Ethan had never been here past noon, and he was surprised by how the space transformed. The harsh fluorescent lighting gave way to softer overhead bulbs that made everything look sepia-toned, almost nostalgic. The dinner crowd was smaller than breakfast. A few regulars who looked like they'd been coming here since the Carter administration, a couple of teenagers sharing cheese fries, a woman reading a paperback at the counter. Maya was still working. Of course she was. Double shifts, she'd said. Ethan wondered how often double actually meant every shift available, because she couldn't afford to say no. He took the same corner booth. Maya saw him immediately, and something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe? Or resignation. She approached slowly, coffee pot in hand. Twice in one day. You must really like our eggs. Actually, I'm just here for coffee. Ethan pushed a folded piece of paper across the table. And to give you this. Maya didn't touch it. What is it? A phone number, a resource. He kept his voice low. If you ever need help, no strings, no judgment, no pressure, just options. I don't need... I know, you're fine. Everything's fine. Ethan leaned back, giving her space. But on the off chance that things ever become not fine, that number connects to a service that specializes in helping people leave bad situations. They have legal resources, safe housing, protection orders, all of it, free and confidential. Maya stared at the paper like it might bite her. You think you know what my life is? I don't. And I'm not trying to rescue you or fix you or play hero. I'm just... He paused, trying to find the right words. I'm giving you information. What you do with it is completely up to you. And if I tell you to mind your own business, then I will. This is the last time we'll talk about it unless you want to. I promise. She picked up the paper, unfolded it, read the number twice. Why do you care? Because someone should. It was the truth, just not all of it. The whole truth was Lauren. The whole truth was guilt that woke him up at 3 a.m. The whole truth was knowing he'd had a chance to help someone once and hadn't, and she'd died because of it. But Maya didn't need his trauma. She had enough of her own. I have to get back to work, she said finally. Of course. She started to walk away, hesitated, turned back. That thing this morning, when you gave Derek the money, that was really stupid. Yeah. He's going to remember that. He's going to... She stopped herself, glanced around the diner to make sure no one was listening. Just be careful. Derek doesn't like being embarrassed. Noted. Maya pocketed the paper and walked away. Ethan sat there for another hour, drinking coffee that had long since gone cold, watching Maya work. She was good at her job, efficient, attentive, the kind of server who remembered orders without writing them down and knew when to chat and when to leave people alone. But every time the door opened, she looked up with that same flash of fear, that same quick calculation of threat. Around 9:30, Derek walked in. He didn't look at Ethan, didn't acknowledge anyone except Maya, who went very still when she saw him. Derek slid into a booth near the back, and after a moment, Maya approached with the coffee pot. Ethan couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could read body language. Derek was leaning back, relaxed, smiling. Maya stood with her weight on her back foot, ready to retreat. They talked for maybe 3 minutes. Then Derek reached out, grabbed her wrist, the same wrist that already had bruises, and pulled her closer. Maya's free hand gripped the coffee pot so hard Ethan thought she might break it. He stood up, reaching for his wallet. "Sit down." Ethan turned. Eddie, the cook, had emerged from the kitchen. He was wiping his hands on a towel, his expression unreadable. "This isn't your fight," Eddie said quietly. "Someone needs to—" "What? Step in and make it worse? You think Derek's going to back off because some rich guy waves money around? All you're doing is giving him another reason to take it out on Maya later." Ethan wanted to argue, but Eddie wasn't wrong. Confronting Derek here, in public, with Maya trapped between them, it wouldn't help. It would escalate things, give Derek an excuse, make Maya the target of his wounded pride. "So we just watch?" Ethan's voice came out harder than he intended. "We do what we can without making things worse." Eddie glanced toward the back booth, where Derek was still holding Maya's wrist. "She's got to be the one who decides to leave. Not you, not me, her. And until she does, all we can do is be ready to help when she asks for it." "And if she doesn't ask before it's too late?" Eddie didn't answer. He didn't have to. Ethan sat back down, hating every second of it, hating the helplessness, hating Derek, hating himself for not knowing what the right move was. 10 minutes later, Derek left. He kissed Maya on the cheek, tender, affectionate, completely at odds with the tension in her shoulders, and walked out into the night. Maya stood there for a long moment, not moving, her hand touching the spot where he'd kissed her. Then she went back to work like nothing had happened. Ethan paid his bill, left a tip that was probably too large, and walked out into the cold Newark night feeling like he'd failed a test he didn't know he was taking. 3 days passed. Ethan went about his life. Meetings, conference calls, the normal rhythm of business. But his mind kept returning to the diner, to Maya, to the paper with the phone number that she'd taken but probably wouldn't use. He told himself to let it go. Eddie was right. This wasn't his fight. Maya had to make her own choices. But guilt was a persistent thing. On Thursday afternoon, Ethan found himself driving past Maya's address. He'd pulled it from the same database where he'd found Derek's information, and he knew it was a violation, knew he was crossing lines he shouldn't cross. 447 South Orange Avenue turned out to be a run-down apartment complex with bars on the ground floor windows and graffiti that had been painted over so many times the walls looked textured. Derek's truck, a black Silverado with a dented rear bumper, was parked out front. Ethan drove past without stopping, hating himself a little more. That night, he went back to the diner. Maya wasn't there. A different waitress, older with a smoker's rasp and efficient indifference, took his order. Ethan ate eggs he didn't want and asked casually where Maya was. "Called in sick," the waitress said. "3rd time this month, Eddie's going to fire her if she's not careful." Sick. The word sat wrong in Ethan's stomach. He finished his meal, left cash on the table, and sat in his car in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at his phone. This was crazy. Obsessive. The behavior of someone who'd watched too many movies and confused intervention with stalking. But he thought about Lauren, about the funeral, about standing in the back of that church and knowing he could have done something, should have done something, and hadn't. He pulled out his phone, called a number he hadn't used in 6 years. "Marcus Chen." "Marcus, it's Ethan Cole." A pause. "Ethan? Wow. Been a while. How are you?" "Good. Listen, I need a favor." Marcus Chen was a private investigator Ethan had hired once to do background checks on a potential business partner who'd turned out to be running 3 different investment scams. Marcus was good at his job, discreet, and understood that sometimes people needed information without asking too many questions about why. "What kind of favor?" Marcus asked. "Surveillance. I need you to keep an eye on someone. Make sure she's safe." "She? It's not like that. There's a domestic situation. I think she's in danger." Another pause, longer this time. "Ethan, if someone's in danger, you should call the police." "She won't. She's scared. And from what I can tell, he's smart enough to avoid leaving evidence." "So you want me to watch her until what? He hurts her? And I catch it on camera?" "I want you to watch her so that if things escalate, someone's there who can help." "You mean someone who isn't you?" "Yeah." Marcus sighed. "This is a bad idea. You know that, right?" "Probably. Probably, definitely. But send me what you have. Name, address, description, any patterns or schedules. I'll see what I can do." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. And Ethan, whatever happened that's got you doing this, you should probably talk to someone about it. Someone professional." "Noted." Ethan hung up, sent Marcus everything he had on Maya and Derek, and sat there in the parking lot feeling like he'd just made things better and worse at the same time. Friday morning, Maya was back at work. She had a split lip and a bruise on her left cheekbone, both badly concealed with makeup. She moved slower than usual, careful, like every step hurt. Ethan felt something cold and sharp settle behind his ribs. When Maya came to take his order, he said nothing about her injuries, didn't ask if she was okay, didn't offer help, didn't even meet her eyes for too long. He'd promised this was her choice, and pushing now would only drive her away. "The usual?" she asked. "Please." She nodded and walked away, and Ethan watched her go, memorizing details. The way she held her left arm close to her body, the stiffness in her gait, the careful way she turned her head, like her neck hurt. Derek had hurt her, badly, and she'd come to work anyway because she probably couldn't afford not to. His phone buzzed, text from Marcus. Marcus. "Got eyes on the apartment. Truck's been there all night. No movement yet." Ethan. "Thanks. Let me know if anything changes." Marcus. "You're paying me to watch someone's house and you won't tell me what I'm watching for. You know that's weird, right?" Ethan. "Just keep watching." Maya returned with his coffee and breakfast, set it down without speaking, started to walk away. "Maya." She stopped, didn't turn around. "What?" "That number I gave you, it's still good. Anytime, day or night." "I know." "Okay." She left, and Ethan ate his eggs without tasting them, rage and helplessness warring in his chest. This was why people didn't get involved. Because getting involved meant watching someone suffer and being unable to stop it. Meant respecting someone's autonomy even when their choices were killing them. Meant understanding that help offered wasn't help accepted. And sometimes people had to hit bottom before they could climb out. But what if Maya's bottom was a morgue? The thought followed Ethan through the rest of his day, through meetings he barely remembered and work he completed on autopilot. It followed him home to his empty apartment, followed him through a dinner he didn't eat, followed him into a night where sleep wouldn't come. At 2:47 a.m., his phone rang. Marcus. "Talk to me," Ethan said. "You need to get down here now." Ethan was already reaching for his pants. "What happened?" "Fight, bad one. I heard screaming, called it in, but by the time police showed up, she was saying everything was fine. They're leaving now." "Is she hurt?" "Can't tell from here, but Ethan, this guy is dangerous, like seriously dangerous. I watched him throw a chair through the window, and 5 minutes later, he's all smiles and apologies when the cops show up. Classic cycle of abuse stuff, but this feels like it's escalating. I'm on my way." "What are you going to do?" "Good question." Ethan grabbed his keys, his wallet, his jacket. "I don't know yet." He made it to South Orange Avenue in 12 minutes, breaking at least 4 traffic laws in the process. Marcus's car, a nondescript Honda Civic, was parked across the street, tucked between 2 other vehicles where it wouldn't draw attention. Ethan pulled up behind it, killed the engine. Marcus got out, walked back to Ethan's car, slid into the passenger seat. He was a thin man in his 50s, gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of person who disappeared in crowds. Perfect for surveillance work. Police left 10 minutes ago, Marcus said. Neighbors are going back to sleep. Show's over. How bad was it? Bad enough that someone called 911. I didn't make the call, by the way. I was just about to when someone beat me to it. Marcus pulled out his phone, showed Ethan a video. Dark, grainy, shot from across the street through a telephoto lens. But clear enough to see Derek Shaw dragging Maya across the living room by her hair. Clear enough to see him shove her against the wall. Clear enough to see her trying to protect her face with her arms. Ethan's hands clenched into fists. Jesus. Yeah. Marcus pocketed his phone. Question is, what are you going to do about it? Can we use this? Give it to the police? Maybe. But she'll have to press charges, and based on what I just watched, she's not going to. She told the cops everything was fine, said the neighbors must have heard the TV. So we just wait for him to kill her. We wait for her to decide she wants help. That's how this works, Ethan. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. That's bullshit. It's reality. Marcus's voice softened. Look, I get it. You want to fix this. But storming in there, confronting him, getting physical, it won't help. It'll make things worse for her. Ethan knew Marcus was right. Knew it in the rational part of his brain that understood systems and consequences. But the irrational part, the part that remembered Lauren's funeral, that heard Maya's scream in that video, didn't care about rational. How long have you been doing this? Ethan asked. Surveillance? 23 years? How many times have you watched someone get hurt and done nothing? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Too many. And it never gets easier. But the alternative, getting involved, breaking protocol, trying to force an outcome, I've seen that go wrong more times than it's gone right. You want to help her. Be patient. Be ready. And when she asks for help, move heaven and earth to give it to her. But until then, he shrugged, all we can do is watch. They sat there in silence, watching the apartment building, waiting for something neither of them could name. At 3:15, the lights in Derek's apartment went out. At 3:47, Ethan drove home. He didn't sleep. The sun came up on Saturday like it had every right to, indifferent to the fact that Ethan had spent the night staring at his ceiling, replaying that grainy video in his head. Maya's scream, Derek's face twisted with rage, the sound of her body hitting the wall. He showered, dressed, made coffee he wouldn't drink. His apartment felt too quiet, too clean, too removed from the ugliness happening 12 blocks away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked downtown Newark, the skyline catching morning light like everything was fine, like the world wasn't full of people hurting each other behind closed doors. His phone sat on the kitchen counter, Marcus's last text still glowing on the screen. Marcus, get some sleep. I'll keep watch. Ethan had hired him for 3 days. It was Saturday now, which meant 1 day left. After that, Marcus would disappear back into whatever cases paid better than babysitting a stranger's guilt, and Maya would be alone again with a man who was going to kill her eventually. The question wasn't if, it was when. Ethan picked up his phone, scrolled through his contacts until he found a name he hadn't called in years. District Attorney's Office. A woman named Jennifer Park, who'd worked on a case involving one of Ethan's early investments, a tech startup whose CFO had been embezzling funds. Jennifer had been thorough, relentless, the kind of prosecutor who cared more about justice than politics. He dialed before he could talk himself out of it. She answered on the third ring, voice rough with sleep. This better be important. Jennifer, it's Ethan Cole. A pause. Ethan, it's 7 a.m. on a Saturday? I know. I'm sorry. I need advice. He heard rustling, could picture her sitting up, running a hand through her hair. What kind of advice? Hypothetically, if someone knew about a domestic violence situation, had evidence of abuse, but the victim wasn't willing to press charges, what options would that person have? The line went quiet for a beat too long. Is this actually hypothetical? Does it matter? Yeah, it does. Because if you're asking what I think you're asking, I need you to understand something. We can't prosecute without a cooperative victim. We can't get restraining orders without the victim filing for one. We can't do anything unless she's willing to participate in her own safety. Even if there's video evidence? Video of what? Ethan hesitated. He was already too deep into this, already crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. But he'd watched Marcus's video 17 times in the last 4 hours, and every time it ended the same way, with Maya on the floor and Derek standing over her. Assault. Clear, documented assault. Jennifer's voice shifted, became sharper, more focused. Who took the video? A private investigator. Jesus, Ethan, tell me you're not stalking someone. I'm not stalking anyone. I'm trying to help someone who's in danger. And she asked for this help? Not exactly. Not exactly, or not at all. Ethan closed his eyes, pressed his thumb and forefinger against the bridge of his nose. Not at all. Then you need to stop. Right now, I'm serious. What you're describing is harassment at best, criminal stalking at worst. If this woman hasn't asked for help, if she hasn't indicated she wants intervention, you have no legal standing. None. And if you push this, you could end up arrested while the actual abuser walks free. So I just watch her get hurt? You call the police when you witness a crime. You offer resources if she asks for them. You respect her autonomy even when you think she's making the wrong choice. Jennifer's tone softened slightly. I know that's not what you want to hear. I know it feels wrong to stand by, but forcing help on someone who isn't ready for it doesn't work. It just drives them deeper into isolation. What if she doesn't have time to get ready? What if the next time he hits her, she doesn't get up? Then that's a tragedy, but it's still not your call to make. The words hit like a slap. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to explain about Lauren, about guilt, about the weight of doing nothing. But Jennifer wasn't wrong. She was just telling him what he already knew and didn't want to accept. Thanks for your time, he said. Ethan, wait. This woman, does she know you're having her watched? No. Then stop. Seriously, you're not helping. You're just inserting yourself into a situation you don't understand and potentially making it more dangerous for everyone involved. Noted. He hung up before she could say anything else, set the phone down, and stood there in his pristine kitchen feeling like a complete bastard. The smart move was to walk away. Delete Marcus's number, stop going to the diner, let Maya's life continue without his interference. He'd offered help. She hadn't taken it. That was supposed to be enough. But it wasn't. It wasn't enough 7 years ago, and it wasn't enough now. Ethan grabbed his keys. The diner was busier on Saturday mornings, filled with families and couples and people who had nowhere better to be. Ethan took his usual booth, watching the door, waiting for Maya to appear. She didn't. Eddie worked the grill with his usual efficiency, and a different waitress, young, maybe 20, with purple streaks in her hair, brought Ethan his coffee. "Where's Maya?" he asked. The girl shrugged. "No idea. Eddie said she called in again. 3rd time this week." "She say why?" "Nope. You want to order or just the coffee?" "Just coffee." She left, and Ethan sat there staring at his cup, his mind already spiraling. Maya had called in sick, which could mean she was actually sick, or it could mean Derek had hurt her badly enough that she couldn't hide it. Or it could mean Derek was keeping her home, isolating her, tightening control. His phone buzzed. Marcus. Still no movement. Truck hasn't left the lot. Curtains are drawn. Can't see inside. Ethan. Keep watching. Marcus. That's today's last update unless something changes. My contract's up at midnight. Ethan. I'll extend it another week. Marcus. Ethan, you need to let this go. Ethan. Another week. Name your price. A longer pause this time. Marcus. Triple my usual rate if you want me to keep doing something I'm telling you is a bad idea. Ethan. Done. He pocketed his phone, left cash on the table, and walked out into morning sunlight that felt too bright, too cheerful for the knot of dread sitting in his stomach. Saturday bled into Sunday. No word from Marcus except periodic updates confirming Derek's truck hadn't moved, and no one had entered or left the apartment. Ethan worked from home, accomplishing nothing. His laptop opened to spreadsheets he didn't read. At 4 in the afternoon, Rachel called. "You're avoiding me," she said without preamble. "I'm not avoiding you. I'm busy." "Bullshit. You missed the Brennan meeting, you bailed on Thursday's strategy session, and you sent me a 2-sentence email approving a $250,000 investment without a single question. So either you've been replaced by a pod person or something's wrong." Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbed his eyes. Rachel was the closest thing he had to a friend who wasn't also an employee or a business contact. They'd started their first company together 15 years ago, back when they were both broke and stupid and convinced they'd change the world. The company had failed, but the partnership had survived, evolved into something that worked because they trusted each other enough to call out each other's bullshit. "I'm dealing with something," he said finally. "Personal?" "Yeah." "You don't do personal." "I'm aware." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Is it serious?" "I don't know yet." "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not really." "Okay." No judgment in her voice, no pressure, just acceptance. "But Ethan, whatever this is, don't do something stupid. You're good at business because you think 3 moves ahead. Apply that same logic to whatever personal crisis you're having." "I'll try." "And if you need help, ask. I'm not just your business partner." "I know. Thanks." He hung up, her words echoing in his head. Don't do something stupid. Too late for that. He'd already hired a PI to surveil a woman who hadn't asked for surveillance, already inserted himself into a situation he had no business being in, already crossed lines that shouldn't be crossed. But he couldn't shake the image of Maya, bruised, scared, trapped. Monday morning, Ethan was back at the diner before dawn. Maya was there. Relief hit him first, sharp and immediate. Then he actually looked at her, and relief turned to something colder. She moved like someone whose ribs hurt. Slow, careful, one hand pressed against her left side whenever she thought no one was watching. Her face was pale, makeup heavier than usual, trying and failing to hide the swelling around her right eye. When she approached his table, she didn't make eye contact. "Coffee?" "Please." She poured with hands that trembled slightly, and Ethan noticed the new bruises on her forearms. Defense wounds, he realized. She'd tried to protect herself. "Maya, don't." The word came out sharp, almost desperate. "Please don't. I know what you're doing. I know you're trying to help, but you can't. You don't understand how this works." "Then explain it to me." She set the coffee pot down harder than necessary. "You think I don't know how bad this looks? You think I haven't thought about leaving? But it's not that simple. I don't have money. I don't have family. I don't have anywhere to go that he wouldn't find me." Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "And if I run and he catches me, it'll be worse. So much worse. That number I gave you, I know I still have it, but making a phone call doesn't fix everything. It doesn't give me a new life or make Derek disappear. It just starts a process that might get me killed." The words landed like stones. "So what? You just stay?" Ethan asked. "You just let him keep hurting you until—" He stopped himself, but they both knew how that sentence ended. "Until I figure out a way to leave that doesn't end with me in a hospital or worse." Maya's eyes finally met his, and they were hard, defiant. "I'm not stupid. I'm not weak. I'm surviving. And I need you to let me survive my own way." She walked away before he could respond, disappearing into the kitchen. Ethan sat there feeling like he'd been punched in the chest. She was right. Everything she'd said was right, and that made it worse somehow. Because she understood her situation better than he did, had calculated the risks and determined that staying was safer than running, and who was he to tell her she was wrong? But understanding didn't make it easier to watch. He finished his coffee without tasting it, left money on the table, and was halfway to the door when Eddie appeared, blocking his path. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Eddie asked. "Sure." They stepped outside into the gray morning. Eddie pulled out a pack of cigarettes, lit one, took a long drag. "You're making things harder for her." "I'm trying to help." "I know. That's the problem." Eddie blew out smoke, watching it dissipate. "Derek came by yesterday. Sat in that same booth you always take. Asked about you." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing. Told him you were just a regular customer. But he's not stupid, Ethan. He sees you watching her. He sees you trying to talk to her. And every time you do, he takes it out on her later." "Jesus." "Yeah." Eddie flicked ash onto the pavement. "Look, I get it. I've worked here 23 years. I've seen this pattern play out more times than I can count. Young woman, older guy, bruises that appear and disappear. And every single time, some well-meaning person tries to step in and fix it. And every single time, it makes things worse. So we just do nothing? We be ready. We stay aware. And when she's ready to leave, we help her do it safely." Eddie met Ethan's eyes. But until then, you backing off might be the best thing you can do for her. Because right now, Derek sees you as competition, and that makes Maya a thing he needs to control more tightly. The truth of it sat bitter on Ethan's tongue. I can't just walk away. Then at least stop being so obvious about it. Come to the diner less. Stop trying to have private conversations with her. Stop looking at her like you're trying to solve a problem. Eddie stubbed out his cigarette. She knows you care. That's enough. Let it be enough. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to explain that doing nothing had failed before, that passive observation wouldn't change anything. But Eddie was right. His presence was making things worse. Derek had noticed, and Maya was paying the price. Okay, Ethan said finally. I'll back off. Good. Eddie turned to go back inside, paused. For what it's worth, you're not wrong to care. You're just wrong about how to help. Ethan drove to his office and tried to work. Made it through 2 hours before giving up, his mind too fractured to focus. He called Marcus. Tell me something good, Ethan said. Can't. It's all bad. Marcus sounded tired. Derek left for work this morning. First time since Friday. Maya stayed home. I got a clear shot through the window when she opened the curtains. She's moving like someone who got worked over pretty good. Did you get photos? Yeah. You want them? Did he? What would he do with them? Show them to Jennifer Park, who'd already told him he couldn't do anything without Maya's cooperation? Show them to Maya like she didn't already know how bad things were? No, Ethan said. Just keep watching. How long are we doing this? I don't know. Because I gotta tell you, man, this is starting to feel less like surveillance and more like we're waiting for something terrible to happen so we can say we saw it coming. You have a better idea? Marcus sighed. No, but I don't love this one either. They hung up and Ethan sat in his office surrounded by the evidence of success. Awards on the walls, photos of companies he'd helped build, furniture that cost more than most people made in a month, and felt completely powerless. The next 3 days followed the same pattern. Ethan stayed away from the diner, getting updates from Marcus that confirmed what he already knew. Derek went to work, came home, and behind those closed curtains, bad things happened. Maya showed up for her shifts, bruised and quiet, and did her job with the mechanical efficiency of someone who'd learned to disappear inside her own skin. On Thursday, something changed. Ethan was in a meeting with Rachel and 2 potential investors when his phone buzzed. He ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Excuse me, he said, stepping out of the conference room. 3 texts from Marcus, each more urgent than the last. Marcus. Derek just left. Middle of the workday. Looked pissed. Marcus. He's heading back to the apartment. Marcus. Ethan, this feels wrong. Call me. Ethan was already moving, grabbing his jacket, his keys. Rachel appeared in the hallway. Where are you going? We're in the middle of emergency. Handle it without me. Ethan. But he was already gone, taking the stairs instead of waiting for the elevator, his heart hammering against his ribs. He called Marcus from the car, speeding through downtown traffic. What's happening? Derek came home 20 minutes ago, stormed into the apartment. I heard yelling, a lot of it. Then it got quiet, too quiet. Did you call the police? And tell them what? That I heard yelling? They'll show up, she'll say everything's fine, and we'll be back where we started. So what do we do? I don't know, man. You're the one paying me. You tell me. Ethan took a corner too fast, tires squealing. I'm 5 minutes out. Stay on the line. He made it in 4, pulling up next to Marcus's Honda with enough force that his brakes protested. Marcus was out of his car immediately, meeting Ethan on the sidewalk. Anything? Nothing since I called you. No sounds, no movement. Curtains are still drawn. They stood there, 2 men staring at a building, completely useless. We should go up there, Ethan said. And do what? Check on her. You mean break in? Trespass? Give Derek a legitimate reason to call the cops on us instead of the other way around? I mean, make sure she's alive. The words hung between them, too dark, too real. Marcus ran a hand through his gray hair. If we do this, we're crossing a line, a big one. And if she's fine, if they're just having an argument, we look like crazy stalkers. But if we don't... He stopped, looked at the building. Okay, let's go. They crossed the street, entered the building through a security door that was propped open with a brick. The stairs smelled like old cooking grease and something chemical. Derek's apartment was on the third floor, number 312. They climbed in silence, Ethan's pulse loud in his ears. The hallway was empty, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Number 312 sat at the end, door closed, no sound coming from inside. Ethan raised his hand to knock, hesitated. "Do it," Marcus whispered. Ethan knocked. 3 sharp raps. Nothing. He knocked again, harder. "Maya, it's Ethan. From the diner. I just wanted to make sure you're okay." Still nothing. He tried the handle. Locked. "Maya, if you can hear me, I need you to make some noise. Let me know you're all right." Silence. Marcus pulled out his phone. "I'm calling 911. "Wait." But Marcus was already dialing. "Yeah, I need to report a wellness check. 447 South Orange Avenue, apartment 312. I heard a disturbance earlier and now no one's answering. I think someone might be hurt." He gave the dispatcher the rest of the information, hung up. "Cops will be here in 10 minutes. They waited. Ethan pressed his ear against the door, straining to hear anything, breathing, movement, crying. But the apartment was silent. 7 minutes later, 2 patrol officers appeared at the end of the hallway. One was young, maybe 25, with the kind of crisp uniform that said rookie. The other was older, seasoned, already bored with whatever this was going to turn out to be. "You the ones who called?" the older cop asked. "Yeah," Marcus said. "We heard yelling earlier, then nothing. We're worried someone inside might be injured." "Who lives here?" "A woman named Maya Reed and her boyfriend Derek Shaw." The older cop knocked on the door. "Police. Open up." Nothing. He knocked again, louder. "This is the Newark Police Department. We received a call about a disturbance. We need you to open the door." A long moment of silence. Then faintly, Ethan heard it. A lock turning. The door opened 6 inches, chain still attached. Maya's face appeared in the gap, and Ethan's breath caught. Her lip was split and bleeding. Her right eye was swollen, nearly shut. There was a cut on her forehead that hadn't been there this morning. "I'm fine," she said. Her voice was thick, like her mouth was full of blood. "Everything's fine." The rookie cop leaned closer. "Ma'am, you're clearly injured. Can we come in?" "No, I fell. In the shower. I'm clumsy." "Where's Derek Shaw?" "He's not here. He went to work." "So you're alone?" "Yes." The older cop exchanged a glance with his partner. "Ma'am, we can see you've been hurt. We'd like to come in. Make sure you don't need medical attention." "I said I'm fine." "Maya." Ethan stepped forward, couldn't help himself. "Please, let them help you." Her eyes found his, and for a second he saw everything, the fear, the pain, the calculation. Then she looked away. "I don't know who you are," she said to Ethan. "You need to leave me alone. Stop following me. Stop showing up at my work. Stop having me watched." The words landed like a punch. The older cop turned to Ethan, his expression shifting. "You know this woman?" She works at a diner I go to." "And you've been following her?" "Not following. I was concerned. I saw Bruises, and I thought—" "You thought you'd play hero?" The cop's hand moved to his belt, resting near his cuffs. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back." "I'm trying to help her," Ethan said, desperation bleeding into his voice. "Derek Shaw is abusing her. I have evidence." "Evidence you obtained how? By stalking her?" "I hired a private investigator." "Jesus Christ." The cop turned to Marcus. "You the PI?" Marcus raised his hands. "I was hired to conduct surveillance, yes. On someone who didn't request it? My client had concerns about her safety." "Your client doesn't get to decide that." The cop looked back at Maya. "Ma'am, do you want to press charges against these men for harassment?" Maya's good eye met Ethan's one more time. "No," she said quietly. "Just make them leave." The older cop jerked his head toward the stairs. "You heard her. Both of you out. Now. And if I see you around this building again, I'll arrest you for trespassing." "But she's hurt," Ethan tried one more time. "You can see she's hurt. He did that to her." "She says she fell." Unless she wants to file a complaint, there's nothing we can do. Now move, before I change my mind about those harassment charges. Marcus grabbed Ethan's arm. Come on, we need to go. Ethan let himself be pulled toward the stairs, looking back at apartment 312. The door was already closing, Maya's battered face disappearing behind it. The lock turned, and Ethan stood there in that shitty hallway, surrounded by the smell of grease and chemicals, understanding with perfect clarity that he'd just made everything worse. The cops escorted them all the way to their cars, standing with arms crossed until both vehicles pulled away from the curb. Ethan drove 3 blocks before he had to pull over, his hands shaking too badly to hold the wheel steady. Marcus pulled up behind him, got out, walked to Ethan's window. That went about as bad as it could go, Marcus said. Ethan pressed his palms against his eyes, trying to stop the spinning in his head. She protected him. After everything he did to her, she protected him. That's what they do. It's part of the cycle. Don't give me clinical analysis right now, Marcus. I can't. He stopped, swallowed hard. I just made her life so much worse. You understand that? Derek's going to know we called the cops. He's going to blame her for it. Maybe. Or maybe he'll back off for a while, knowing people are watching. You don't believe that. Marcus leaned against the car, looking back toward the apartment building like he could see through 3 blocks of Newark real estate to that closed door. No, I don't. They stood there in silence for a moment, the afternoon sun doing nothing to warm the cold settling in Ethan's chest. I'm done, Marcus said finally. I'll send you my final invoice, but I can't keep doing this. It's not helping her, and it's not helping you. So we just walk away? We accept that some people can't be saved until they're ready to save themselves. Marcus pulled his keys from his pocket. I'm sorry, Ethan, I really am. But this is above my pay grade and beyond my conscience. You want to keep obsessing over this woman, that's your choice. But count me out. He walked back to his car, and Ethan watched him drive away, leaving him alone with the wreckage of his good intentions. His phone rang. Rachel. Ethan ignored it. It rang again. He let it go to voicemail. On the 3rd call, he answered. What? The investors walked, Rachel said. No preamble, just the facts. You disappeared in the middle of our pitch. I tried to salvage it, but they said if you're not committed enough to stay in the room, they're not committed enough to write a check. How much? $2.3 million. Ethan closed his eyes. $2.3 million gone because he'd been too busy playing White Knight to someone who didn't want rescuing. I'll fix it, he said. How? They're already talking to other firms, and Ethan, I need to know, is this going to keep happening? Because if you're having some kind of breakdown, we need to address it before you tank the whole company. I'm not having a breakdown. Then what's going on? And don't tell me it's personal. Personal doesn't cost us $2 million in a single afternoon. Ethan stared through his windshield at nothing. There's a woman. She's being abused. I tried to help. It went badly. Rachel was quiet for a long moment. Is she someone you're involved with? No, she's a waitress. I don't even really know her. Then why are you risking everything over this? Because 7 years ago, someone else had needed help and he'd done nothing. Because Lauren's funeral had taught him that inaction had consequences. Because he'd convinced himself that this time would be different. That this time he'd be the one who stepped up and made a difference. But all he'd actually done was make things worse. I don't know, he said, and it was the most honest thing he'd said in days. Okay. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take the rest of the week off. Go somewhere quiet, get your head straight, and figure out what you actually want here. Because whatever you're doing now isn't working for anyone. Rachel, this isn't a suggestion, Ethan. This is me protecting the company from your self-destruction. Take the week. Get help if you need it. But don't come back until you're ready to actually be here. She hung up. Ethan sat in his car on a random Newark street, watching people go about their normal lives, walking dogs, pushing strollers, arguing on cell phones about normal things. And he felt completely untethered from all of it. He drove home, poured 3 fingers of scotch he didn't drink, and sat on his couch staring at the wall until the sun went down. His phone buzzed around 9. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Hello? Breathing on the other end, ragged, wet, like someone crying. Hello? Ethan said again. You need to stop. Maya's voice, barely recognizable through tears and what sounded like a split lip. Please, you have to stop trying to help me. Maya, he knows. About the PI, about you watching the apartment, about the cops today. He knows all of it, and he's... Her voice broke. You're making it so much worse. Every time you try to help, it gets worse. Ethan's hand tightened on the phone. Where are you right now? Are you safe? I'm not safe. I haven't been safe in 3 years. But I was surviving. I had a system. I knew his patterns. I knew how to make it through. And then you came along with your good intentions and your money and your fucking savior complex, and now I don't know how to predict him anymore. Tell me where you are. I'll come get you. Right now. We'll go somewhere he can't find you. And then what? I live in hiding for the rest of my life? I give up my job, my apartment, everything I have because you decided I needed saving? She laughed, bitter and broken. You don't get it. This isn't a movie. There's no happy ending where the rich guy swoops in and fixes everything. There's also no ending where you keep letting him beat you until he kills you. Maybe that's my choice to make. The words landed like a death sentence. Don't say that, Ethan said. Please don't say that. Why? Because it makes you uncomfortable? Because it means you can't fix this? Maya's breathing hitched. I called to tell you to back off, to stop watching me, stop trying to save me, stop making my life harder than it already is. Can you do that? Can you just leave me alone? Every instinct Ethan had screamed no. Every lesson from 7 years ago told him that walking away meant watching someone die. But Maya was right about one thing. This was her choice, her life, her risk to take. Okay, he said, the word tasting like ash. I'll stop. You promise? I promise. Another long silence, filled only with her ragged breathing. Thank you, she whispered. The line went dead. Ethan set the phone down and finally drank that scotch. Then he poured another, and another, until the edges of the world went soft and the guilt became something he could almost live with. He woke up on his couch at 4 a.m, head pounding, mouth tasting like he'd been chewing carpet. His phone sat on the coffee table, screen dark, silent. No calls, no texts, no word from Maya. He'd made a promise. He intended to keep it. The next 3 days were a study in discipline. Ethan stayed away from the diner, deleted Marcus's number, avoided driving anywhere near South Orange Avenue. He threw himself into work, taking meetings Rachel had given up on, personally calling the investors who'd walked to rebuild bridges he'd burned. It almost worked, but every quiet moment, every gap in his schedule, his mind went back to that phone call. Maya's broken voice, the sound of tears and terror, the resignation in her words when she'd said maybe dying was her choice to make. On Wednesday, Rachel appeared in his office doorway. You look like hell, she said. Thanks. But you're functional again, so I'll take it. She sat down across from him, studied his face. You want to tell me what actually happened with this woman? Not particularly. Tough. You cost us $2 million and nearly tanked our reputation. I think I've earned some honesty. Ethan leaned back in his chair, considering how much to say. Rachel was practical, logical, the kind of person who made decisions based on data rather than emotion. She wouldn't understand the guilt, the compulsion, the way Lauren's death had carved out a piece of him that nothing could fill. But she'd also been his partner for 15 years. If anyone deserved the truth, it was her. I thought I could save her, he said simply. Turns out I was wrong. And now? Now I'm leaving her alone like she asked. Rachel nodded slowly. That must be hard. Yeah, but it's the right call. You can't help someone who doesn't want help. You can't save someone from their own choices. She paused. And you can't spend your life trying to make up for whatever happened before this that's got you so twisted up. Ethan's eyes snapped to hers. What makes you think there's something before this? Because I've known you for 15 years, and you've never once lost your mind over a stranger. Which means this isn't about her, it's about someone else. Rachel's voice softened. Whatever happened, whoever you couldn't help, it wasn't your fault, and destroying yourself now won't change it. You don't know that. I know you, that's enough. She stood, headed for the door, paused with her hand on the frame. Take care of yourself, Ethan. The company needs you functional. And more than that, I need my friend back. Thursday morning, Ethan broke his promise. He didn't plan to. Woke up with every intention of going to the office, getting through another day of normal. But his route to work took him past the diner, and before he could stop himself, he was pulling into the parking lot. Just to see if she was okay. Just to confirm she was still alive. He wouldn't go in, wouldn't talk to her, would just look through the window, verify she was breathing, and leave. The diner was busy with the breakfast rush. Through the window, Ethan could see Eddie at the grill, the purple-haired waitress taking orders, customers occupying every booth. But no Maya. He waited 15 minutes, watching. She didn't appear. Ethan's stomach tightened. It had been 4 days since that phone call. 4 days of silence. And now she wasn't at work. He pulled out his phone, stared at it. He'd promised to leave her alone. Breaking that promise would confirm everything Derek probably believed about him. That he was a stalker, an obsessive, someone who couldn't take no for an answer. But what if she was hurt? What if Derek had finally gone too far? His phone rang before he could make a decision. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Ethan Cole? A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. Yes. Who's this? My name is Sarah Chen. I'm a caseworker with the Newark Women's Crisis Center. I got your number from a client who said you'd offered to help her. Ethan's heart stopped. Maya. I can't confirm or deny who my client is, privacy regulations, but I was asked to contact you about providing a reference for emergency housing assistance. She left him? She actually left? A pause. Again, I can't discuss specifics, but if you're willing to provide a reference, character witness, financial guarantee, that sort of thing, it would help expedite placement in a safe location. Yes, absolutely yes, whatever you need. Great. I'll email you the paperwork. We'll need it back within 24 hours. You'll have it in 2. Sarah gave him her email address, and they hung up. Ethan sat there in the diner parking lot, hands shaking, something that felt dangerously close to hope blooming in his chest. She'd left. Maya had actually left. The email arrived 10 minutes later. Ethan read through the forms. Basic information about how he knew Maya, character assessment, financial guarantee that he'd cover first and last month's rent if the shelter couldn't place her in subsidized housing within 60 days. He filled it out in the parking lot, sent it back in under an hour. Then he sat there, staring at his phone, waiting for something. Confirmation, update, anything. Nothing came. Friday morning, Sarah Chen called again. Your reference helped. We've secured emergency placement. I wanted to thank you personally. Is she okay? She's safe. That's all I can tell you. When can I... Mr. Cole, I need to be clear about something. My client has requested no contact with anyone from her previous life. That includes you. She's grateful for your help, but she needs space to heal and rebuild without outside interference. The words stung more than they should have. I understand, Ethan said. I'm sure you do. And for what it's worth, your persistence probably saved her life. She told me about the number you gave her at the diner. Said she kept it for 3 weeks before she was brave enough to call. So thank you. Just make sure she stays safe. That's my job, and we're very good at it. Sarah hung up, and Ethan sat in his office, staring at spreadsheets that suddenly seemed trivial and meaningless. Maya was safe. She'd gotten out. That should have been enough. But the relief was complicated by the knowledge that he'd never know what happened next. Never know if she rebuilt her life or fell back into old patterns. Never know if Derek respected her leaving or spent every day trying to find her. Never know if his interference had actually helped or just delayed the inevitable. That evening, Ethan went back to the diner. Not to look for Maya. He knew she wouldn't be there. Just to close the loop, to return to where this all started. Eddie was working the grill. When he saw Ethan, something shifted in his expression. You heard? Eddie asked. That she left? Yeah. Eddie nodded slowly. Cops came by yesterday. Asked questions about Derek, about whether I'd seen him harassing Maya, gave me a card, told me to call if he showed up looking for her. Has he? Not yet, but he will. Eddie flipped an egg with practiced efficiency. Men like Derek don't let go easy. The shelter won't tell him where she is. Shelters have addresses. Addresses can be found. Nothing's foolproof. Eddie met Ethan's eyes. You did a good thing. getting her that help. But this isn't over. You know that, right? Ethan did know, had known from the beginning. Getting Maya out was only the first step. Keeping her safe, helping her build a new life, making sure Derek couldn't drag her back. That was the harder part. What do I do now? Ethan asked. Now you let her figure out her own life. You've done what you can do. Ethan ordered coffee and eggs he wouldn't eat, sat in his usual booth, and tried to feel like this was a victory. The weekend passed quietly. No word from Sarah Chen, no updates on Maya, no sign of Derek. Ethan caught up on work, had dinner with Rachel where they talked about business, and carefully avoided the subject of his recent breakdown. Monday morning, everything changed. Ethan was in his office when his phone rang. Jennifer Park, the prosecutor he'd called weeks ago. Jennifer, what's up? Derek Shaw. That's the name of the guy involved in that domestic situation you called me about, right? Ethan's pulse kicked up. Yeah. Why? Because he just got arrested, violated a restraining order, showed up at a women's shelter, threatened staff. Whole thing's on camera. Is Maya okay? Who? The woman he was abusing, Maya Reed. Oh, yeah, she's fine. She wasn't there when it happened, but the shelter filed charges, and given his history, the judge denied bail. He's sitting in county lockup until trial. Relief flooded through Ethan so fast it made him dizzy. How long will he be there? Depends. If he takes a plea, could be months. If it goes to trial, could be longer. And here's the thing. Once we started digging into Derek Shaw, we found a lot more than just this restraining order violation. Turns out he's got warrants in 2 other states for similar incidents. Guy's a serial abuser who's been skating by on victims too scared to press charges. So what happens now? Now we build a case. And if your friend Maya is willing to testify about what he did to her, we can put this guy away for years instead of months. She's not my friend. I barely know her. Right. Well, whatever she is, we're going to need her cooperation. Think you can help with that? I can try, but she asked me not to contact her. Then don't contact her. Contact her caseworker, let them know the situation, and let them present the option. We're not trying to pressure anyone. But if she's willing to come forward, we can make sure Derek Shaw never hurts anyone again. Ethan hung up and immediately called Sarah Chen. Mr. Cole, I told you no contact. I know, but the prosecutor handling Derek Shaw's case just called me. He's in custody, and they want Maya to testify. Sarah was quiet for a moment. I'll pass along the information, but that decision is entirely hers. I understand, just make sure she knows she'd be safe, that he can't get to her. I'll make sure she has all the facts. 2 days later, Sarah called back. She's willing to testify, Sarah said. On one condition. What's that? She wants to meet with you first. To thank you, she said. And to make sure you understand something. What? You'll have to ask her yourself. She requested a supervised meeting at the crisis center tomorrow at 2. Are you available? Ethan cleared his schedule before Sarah finished the question. The Newark Women's Crisis Center occupied a nondescript brick building on a quiet street, designed to blend in and avoid attention. Security was tight. Buzzer entry, cameras, a receptionist who checked Ethan's ID 3 times before letting him through. Sarah Chen met him in the lobby. She was younger than he'd expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and the calm efficiency of someone who'd seen every nightmare variation human relationships could produce. Mr. Cole, thank you for coming. Of course. She led him down a hallway painted in soothing blues and grays, past offices and closed doors, to a small conference room. Maya sat at a table, hands wrapped around a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. She looked different. Better, in some ways. The bruises had faded, her face had color, her shoulders didn't curl inward like she was trying to disappear. But there was something fragile about her, too, like she was held together by nothing but willpower. I'll be right outside, Sarah said, closing the door. Ethan sat down across from Maya, suddenly not sure what to say. You look good, he tried. Liar. But she almost smiled. You look tired. Been a rough few weeks. Yeah, for both of us. Maya set down her tea, met his eyes. Sarah told me Derek's in custody, that he violated the restraining order. He showed up at a shelter. On camera, judge denied bail. Good. No emotion in the word, just flat satisfaction. Sarah also said they want me to testify. Only if you're comfortable, no pressure. I know, but I'm going to do it. Not for Derek, not even for me, really, but for whoever comes after me if I don't. Ethan nodded. That's brave. It's necessary. There's a difference. Maya folded her hands on the table, studying them. I wanted to see you because I need to say something about what you did. Maya, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Because you need to hear it. She looked up and her eyes were hard. What you did was wrong. Following me, having me watched, calling the cops without my permission, all of it was wrong. You violated my privacy and my autonomy, and you made my life harder when it was already barely survivable. The words landed like stones, each one deserved. But, Maya continued, it also saved my life. Because I wasn't going to leave on my own. I convinced myself I could manage Derek, that I could survive if I just stayed small enough and quiet enough. And then you showed up with your guilt and your savior complex and your complete inability to mind your own business, and you didn't give me the option of disappearing anymore. I'm sorry, Ethan said, for making it harder. I know you are, and I forgive you, but I also need you to understand something. She leaned forward, holding his gaze. I'm not your redemption. Whatever happened before this, whoever you failed, fixing me doesn't fix that. You helped me, and I'm grateful. But I'm not going to carry your guilt for you. The words cut deep because they were true. Her name was Lauren, Ethan said quietly. She worked at a gym I went to. I saw the bruises. I did nothing. 3 weeks later, she was dead. And you've been trying to save her ever since. Yeah. Maya reached across the table, touched his hand briefly. You can't. She's gone. But you can let her go. They sat there in silence for a moment, two people connected by violence and distance and the strange intimacy of seeing each other at their worst. What happens now? Ethan asked. Now I testify. I work with Sarah to find permanent housing. I figure out who I am when I'm not just surviving. Maya pulled her hand back. And you go back to your life and stop trying to rescue people who didn't ask for it. I can do that. Can you? Ethan thought about it. About Lauren. About the guilt that woke him at 3 a.m, about the compulsion to fix, to save, to never again be the person who looked away. I can try, he said. That's all any of us can do. Sarah knocked on the door, opened it. Time's up, I'm afraid. Maya stood. Ethan did too. Thank you, she said, for everything, even the parts that were wrong. Good luck, Ethan replied, with all of it. She walked out, and Ethan stood there in that quiet conference room, feeling something shift in his chest. Not closure, it was too messy for that, too complicated, but maybe the beginning of letting go. He drove back to his office, sat at his desk, and for the first time in weeks, actually focused on work. The next morning, Derek Shaw's attorney called. Ethan stared at his phone screen, the name glowing like a warning sign. Robert Castellano, attorney at law. He let it ring twice more before answering. Ethan Cole. Mr. Cole, my name is Robert Castellano. I represent Derek Shaw. The voice was smooth, practiced, the kind of lawyer who'd learned to sound reasonable even when defending the indefensible. I was hoping we could have a conversation. About what? About your involvement in my client's current legal troubles. I understand you've been instrumental in building the case against him. Ethan leaned back in his chair. I didn't build anything. I just tried to help someone who needed it. By hiring a private investigator to surveil my client without his knowledge or consent? By making false reports to police? By harassing a woman who repeatedly asked you to leave her alone? Maya asked me to back off because your client threatened her. That's not the same thing. See, that's where we disagree. Papers rustled on Castellano's end. I have phone records showing Ms. Reed called you, begging you to stop interfering. I have police reports documenting that she denied needing help when officers responded to your wellness check. I have testimony from neighbors who witnessed you lurking outside my client's apartment building on multiple occasions. I wasn't lurking. I was making sure she was safe. That's a matter of perspective, isn't it? From where I'm sitting, you're an obsessed stalker who fixated on a vulnerable woman and used your wealth to invade her privacy. And when she rejected your advances, you manufactured a narrative that painted my client as the villain. Ethan's grip tightened on the phone. Your client put her in the hospital. My client has never been convicted of any crime involving Ms. Reed. In fact, every domestic disturbance call to their residence was dismissed because Miss Reed herself said there was no problem. Until you came along. What do you want, Castellano? I want you to understand something, Mr. Cole. You've inserted yourself into a complicated relationship you don't understand. Derek Shaw is a good man going through a difficult time. He lost his job, he's struggling with depression, and yes, he and Miss Reed have had their problems. But what you've done, the surveillance, the interference, the manipulation of a vulnerable woman, that crosses lines, legal lines. Are you threatening to sue me? I'm informing you that we're exploring all options, including a civil suit for harassment, defamation, and emotional distress. But I'm also offering you a way out. Here it comes, Ethan thought. Ms. Reed is scheduled to testify at my client's hearing next week. If she were to reconsider that decision, if she were to remember that this whole situation has been blown out of proportion by outside interference, well, that would change things considerably. You want me to convince her not to testify. I want you to stop manipulating her. Let her make her own choices without your influence. She is making her own choice. She wants to testify. Does she? Or does she feel obligated because you've spent weeks telling her she's a victim who needs saving? Castellano's voice hardened. Think about it, Mr. Cole. You've already cost her her home, her relationship, her sense of stability. Are you really going to drag her through a trial that will traumatize her further, just to satisfy your own savior complex? This conversation is over. One more thing. Derek Shaw has friends. People who care about him, who know he's not the monster you've made him out to be. Some of those friends are very interested in meeting the man who's destroying his life. I'd hate for any misunderstandings to occur. The threat was barely veiled. If Derek or any of his friends come near me, I'll have them arrested. Oh, I'm not talking about Derek. He's far too smart to violate his bail conditions. I'm just saying, Newark can be a dangerous place. Accidents happen. It would be unfortunate if your crusade put you in harm's way. Castellano hung up. Ethan sat there, anger and unease warring in his chest. The call had been a fishing expedition, testing whether he could be intimidated or bought. But underneath the legal posturing, there'd been a real threat. Derek had friends. Those friends knew who Ethan was. He forwarded the call details to Jennifer Park with a brief message. Derek's lawyer just threatened me. Thought you should know. Her response came back in under a minute. Jennifer, recorded? Ethan, no. Jennifer, then it's, he said, she said. But I'll note it in the file. Watch your back. Great. Perfect. Just what he needed. Rachel appeared in his doorway an hour later, arms crossed. We need to talk. About? About the fact that our insurance carrier just got a letter from Robert Castellano threatening a harassment lawsuit against you personally and the company by extension. Ethan closed his laptop. It's bullshit. He's trying to scare me into backing off. Is it working? No. Should it be? Rachel came in, shut the door, sat down. Because Ethan, this has already cost us one major investment. If it costs us our insurance coverage too, we're in serious trouble. He won't actually file. It's a bluff. You don't know that. And even if it is, the threat alone is enough to spook our investors. I've already had 3 phone calls this morning asking about our legal exposure from principal misconduct. She rubbed her temples. Tell me this is almost over. The hearing's next week. After that, Derek either takes a plea or goes to trial. Either way, my part in this is done. And if he doesn't take a plea? If this drags on for months? Then it drags on. But I'm not going to let him intimidate me into abandoning Maya. Rachel studied him for a long moment. You know this isn't actually about Maya anymore, right? This is about you proving something to yourself, about redemption or guilt or whatever psychological knot you've tied yourself into. Maybe, but that doesn't make it wrong. It does if it destroys everything you've built, everything we've built together. Her voice softened. I care about you, Ethan, as a partner and as a friend. But I also have a responsibility to this company and everyone who depends on it. So I'm asking you, as someone who's been with you since the beginning, is this really worth it? Ethan thought about Maya's face in that conference room, the bruises that had faded, the strength it must have taken to agree to testify. The reality that if he backed down now, Derek might walk free to hurt someone else. "Yeah," he said. "It is." Rachel stood, headed for the door. "Then I hope you're right, because if you're wrong, we're all going to pay for it." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at shadows on the ceiling, thinking about Castellano's words. Derek Shaw has friends. Newark can be a dangerous place. It was probably nothing. Legal intimidation, empty threats. Castellano was doing his job, defending his client by any means necessary, but probably wasn't the same as definitely. At 2 in the morning, Ethan got up, made coffee, and did what he should have done weeks ago. He called a security company. By Friday, his apartment had a new alarm system, his car had a dash cam, and he'd hired a security consultant to assess his vulnerability. The consultant, a former cop named Mike Torres, had been blunt. "You've made yourself a target. Home address is public record, your office location is on your website, your daily routine is predictable. If someone wanted to get to you, they could. What do you recommend? Vary your schedule, different routes to work, different times, different routines. Be aware of your surroundings. If you see the same car twice, note it. If someone approaches you in a parking lot, create distance. And for the next few weeks, until this trial situation resolves, consider hiring personal security." "You mean a bodyguard?" "I mean someone who can watch your back while you're focused on other things." Ethan had declined. Hiring a bodyguard felt paranoid, excessive. But he'd taken the rest of Mike's advice, changing his patterns, staying alert, keeping his phone charged and accessible. The weekend passed without incident. No threatening calls, no suspicious cars, no signs of Derek's alleged friends. Monday morning, Jennifer Park called. "We've got a problem." Ethan's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? The kind where key evidence mysteriously disappears. The shelter's security footage from the night Derek showed up, it's gone. "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean the digital files have been corrupted. It says it looks like deliberate tampering, but they can't prove it. And without that footage, our case for the restraining order violation gets a lot weaker." "What about witness testimony?" "The shelter staff saw him." "They did. But Castellano's already filed motions to suppress their testimony, claiming they're biased because they work for an organization that's fundamentally opposed to men like Derek. It's a bullshit argument, but without the video to back them up, it might work. So what happens to Derek? Depends on the judge. Best case, he still gets convicted, but with a lighter sentence. Worst case, the charges get reduced to trespassing, and he walks with probation. And Maya's testimony. Still important, maybe more important now. If she's willing to detail the abuse, to put Derek's pattern of behavior on record, it could sway the judge even without the video. She'll do it. She already said she would. I hope so. Because right now, she's our best shot at keeping this guy locked up. That afternoon, Sarah Chen called. "We have a situation." Ethan was getting tired of that phrase. "What now?" Maya received a letter, hand-delivered to the shelter. No return address, no stamp, just her name on the envelope. What did it say? I can't share the exact contents, privacy rules, but the tone was threatening, implied that testifying would have consequences, for her and for people who've helped her. Derek's in jail, he can't, but his friends aren't. And someone knew where to deliver that letter, which means they knew which shelter Maya was staying at. Sarah's voice was tight. "We're moving her, tonight. Different facility, different city. And we're recommending she consider withdrawing her testimony." "No, that's exactly what they want. What I want is for my client to stay alive, Mr. Cole. That's my only job. And right now, someone is actively threatening her safety. Then get her police protection, get her a security detail, but don't let Derek win by scaring her into silence. This isn't about winning or losing. This is about a traumatized woman who's already been through hell, and whether we're going to ask her to risk her life to put her abuser in prison for a few extra months. You said it yourself. This could keep him locked up, could stop him from doing this to someone else. Or it could get her killed." Sarah's voice softened. "I know you mean well. I know you want justice, but I'm not going to pressure my client into doing something that might cost her everything. That decision has to be hers, made freely, without guilt or manipulation. Can I talk to her? No, absolutely not. She's made it clear she doesn't want contact right now. She needs space to think. Then just Tell her I said she's braver than anyone I've ever met, and whatever she decides, I'll support it. Sarah was quiet for a moment. I'll tell her. Tuesday morning, Ethan was leaving his apartment building when a man stepped out of a parked SUV. Ethan Cole? Ethan's hand went to his phone, ready to dial 911. Who's asking? The man raised his hands in a placating gesture. He was big, 6'3", easily 220, with the build of someone who'd played football in college and kept up the gym habit. Relax. I'm not here to start trouble. Just wanted to talk. About what? About Derek Shaw. I'm his brother-in-law, married to his sister. I don't have anything to say to you. Just 5 minutes, please. Something in his tone made Ethan pause. Not threatening, just tired. Talk, Ethan said, keeping his distance. The man, he introduced himself as Kevin Matthews, leaned against his SUV. Look, I know what you think about Derek, and I'm not here to tell you you're wrong. He's got problems. Anger issues, control issues, all of it. I've seen it firsthand. Then why are you here? Because he's also my family, and his sister, my wife. She's falling apart watching this all go down. She's convinced that if Derek goes to prison, he'll come out worse, more violent, more broken. Maybe he should have thought about that before he beat up his girlfriend. You're right, he should have. But that doesn't change the reality that prison isn't going to fix him. It's just going to warehouse him for a few months, then spit him back out angrier than before. Kevin rubbed his face. I'm not asking you to drop the charges. I'm just asking, is there any way to resolve this that doesn't destroy everyone involved? Derek destroyed his own life when he decided to use Maya as a punching bag. I know, and he needs to face consequences. But does it have to be this? A trial? Public testimony? His name in the papers? Can't there be some kind of plea deal where he gets treatment instead of jail time? That's between Derek, his lawyer, and the prosecutor. I don't have any say in it. But Maya does. And from what I understand, you have influence with her. I don't. And even if I did, I wouldn't use it to help Derek avoid consequences. Kevin pushed off from his SUV, and Ethan tensed. But the big man just looked defeated. I figured, worth a shot anyway. He pulled out a business card, offered it to Ethan. If you change your mind, or if there's ever anything I can do to make this right, call me. I'm not trying to protect Derek. I'm just trying to protect my family from the fallout. Ethan took the card without looking at it. Your family will be fine. It's Maya you should be worried about. Yeah, you're probably right about that too. Kevin got back in his SUV and drove away, leaving Ethan standing on the sidewalk wondering if that conversation had been genuine or just another manipulation tactic. Wednesday afternoon, Jennifer Park called with news. Derek's taking a plea. Relief hit Ethan like a wave. What's the deal? 18 months, suspended to probation, mandatory anger management and domestic violence counseling, 5-year restraining order. And if he violates any terms, the full sentence kicks in. Well, that's it? 18 months suspended? It's better than nothing, and it means Maya doesn't have to testify, doesn't have to relive her trauma in open court. It also means Derek walks free. For now. But if he screws up even once in the next 5 years, he goes straight to jail, and the restraining order is ironclad. If he comes within 500 feet of Maya, he's arrested on the spot. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to demand real justice, actual consequences. But the truth was, this was probably the best they were going to get. Most domestic violence cases ended with plea deals or dismissals. At least this way, Derek had restrictions, requirements, oversight. Does Maya know? Sarah's telling her now. Figured she'd want to hear it from someone she trusts. How do you think she'll take it? Honestly, I think she'll be relieved. The idea of testifying was weighing on her heavily. This gives her closure without the trauma. Maybe. Or maybe it would feel like Derek got away with it. Like all her suffering added up to mandatory counseling and a piece of paper saying he had to stay away. What happens now? Ethan asked. Now we move on. Derek signs the plea agreement Friday, gets released on probation, and starts his counseling. Maya continues with her housing assistance and support services. And you... Jennifer paused. You get to go back to your normal life and stop playing vigilante. I was never playing vigilante. Right. You were just a concerned citizen who hired a PI, harassed a domestic violence victim, and nearly got himself killed by interfering in things he didn't understand. When you put it that way, There's no other way to put it, Ethan. You got lucky. This could have ended a dozen different ways, most of them bad. So take the win, learn from it, and next time someone needs help, call the professionals instead of trying to save them yourself. She hung up before he could respond. Thursday evening, Sarah Chen called. Maya wanted me to thank you for everything. She doesn't need to thank me. I should be thanking her for not pressing charges for harassment. She's not angry. She understands you were trying to help, even if your methods were questionable. Sarah paused. She also wanted you to know that she's doing okay. She got accepted into a job training program, found a small apartment she can afford, and she's starting therapy next week. That's good. That's really good. It is. And she wanted me to tell you one more thing. What's that? That she forgives you for all of it. The surveillance, the interference, the ways you made things harder. She said to tell you that forgiveness doesn't mean what you did was right, but it means she's choosing not to carry anger about it. The words hit harder than Ethan expected. Tell her. He stopped, not sure what he wanted to say. Thank you felt inadequate. I'm sorry felt insufficient. Tell her I'm glad she's safe, and I hope she builds an amazing life. I will. And Sarah, thank you for putting up with me, for protecting her, for doing this impossible job. It's not impossible, it's just hard, but worth it. She softened. You did help, Ethan, in your own messy, complicated way. Maya might not have left without you pushing, so thank you too. Friday morning, Derek Shaw signed his plea agreement and walked out of the courthouse a free man. Ethan watched from across the street, standing next to his car, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no rage, just a dull acknowledgement that this chapter was closing. Derek looked smaller somehow, less threatening. Just a middle-aged man in a cheap suit, flanked by his lawyer and his brother-in-law, facing reporters who shouted questions he ignored. Robert Castellano made a brief statement about rehabilitation and second chances, about his client taking responsibility and committing to change. It was polished, rehearsed, the kind of speech that sounded good and meant nothing. Then Derek got into Kevin's SUV and they drove away. That was it. No dramatic confrontation, no last-minute revelations, just a plea deal and a drive home. Ethan got in his car and went back to work. The following week passed quietly. No more threatening calls, no more late-night emergencies, no more surveillance or crisis management. Just normal business, meetings, investments, strategy sessions with Rachel. It felt strange. After weeks of chaos, the return to routine was almost disorienting. On Thursday afternoon, a package arrived at Ethan's office. Plain brown box, no return address. His assistant brought it in looking uncertain. This came for you. I had security scan it. It's clean. But the lack of sender information seemed odd. Ethan opened it carefully. Inside was a small wooden box, handmade, simple, but well-crafted, and a note in handwriting he didn't recognize. Mr. Cole, I made this in a woodworking class at the shelter. Sarah said you appreciate craftsmanship. I wanted you to have something to remember that broken things can be rebuilt into something beautiful. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Maya. Ethan sat there holding the box, feeling the smooth wood under his fingers, and for the first time in 7 years, let himself cry. Not for Lauren, not for Maya, but for himself, for the guilt he'd carried, the mistakes he'd made, the impossible burden of trying to save everyone while saving no one. Rachel found him 10 minutes later, tears dried but eyes still red. She didn't ask what happened, just sat down across from him and waited. I'm okay, Ethan said finally. Are you? Getting there, she nodded. Good. Because we have a business to run, and I can't do it alone. I know. And Ethan, whatever happened these past few weeks, you're allowed to be human. You're allowed to make mistakes and feel things and care too much about people you barely know. Just maybe next time, talk to someone before you spiral into obsessive stalker territory. Noted. She stood to leave, paused at the door. The box is beautiful, by the way. What are you going to keep in it? Ethan looked at the wooden box, turned it over in his hands. Reminders, he said, of what matters and what doesn't. 2 weeks later, Ethan was having lunch with Rachel when his phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Unknown. This is Maya. Sarah gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Ethan. Of course. How are you? Unknown. Good. Great, actually. Sardi. Started my new job this week, receptionist at a dental office. Not glamorous, but it's mine. Ethan, that's wonderful. Congratulations. Unknown, thank you for everything. I know we already said this, but I wanted to say it again now that I have some distance. You saved my life, even when I didn't want you to. Ethan, you saved your own life. I just gave you a phone number. Unknown, you gave me more than that. You gave me proof that someone cared enough to fight for me, even when I was fighting against you. Ethan, how's Derek? Unknown, don't know, don't care. The restraining order's in place. I changed my phone number, and I'm rebuilding my life without him in it. That's all that matters. Ethan, good. Unknown, Sarah said you had a hard time with all this, that it brought up old stuff. Ethan, yeah, but I'm working through it. Unknown, good. You deserve peace too. They texted back and forth for a few more minutes. Small talk, updates, the comfortable conversation of two people who'd been through something terrible together and come out the other side. When they said goodbye, Ethan set down his phone and looked at Rachel. That was Maya. How's she doing? Good, she's doing good. And you? Ethan thought about it. Thought about Lauren's funeral and the guilt he'd carried. Thought about Maya's bruises and his obsessive need to fix them. Thought about the wooden box on his desk and the reminder it represented, that broken things could be rebuilt, but only by the people who owned them. I'm doing good too, he said. And for the first time in 7 years, he actually meant it. 3 months passed like water through fingers. Quick, inevitable. Leaving marks Ethan didn't expect. The wooden box sat on his desk, a constant presence he'd stopped noticing consciously, but felt anyway. Some days he'd catch himself touching it, running his thumb along the smooth grain, remembering. Other days it was just another object in a room full of them, easy to overlook until it wasn't. Business returned to normal, which meant controlled chaos. Rachel had secured 2 new investments to replace the Brennan deal, and their portfolio was actually stronger for it. The threatened lawsuit from Castellano never materialized. Turned out threatening harassment suits against people who'd helped domestic violence victims was bad optics, even for lawyers with flexible ethics. Ethan had dinner with Rachel once a week now, a ritual they'd fallen into without discussing it. She never asked about Maya directly, but sometimes she'd glance at the wooden box and raise an eyebrow, and that was enough. You still talk to her? Rachel asked one Thursday evening over Italian food neither of them was really eating. Occasionally, text messages mostly. She updates me on her job. I ask how she's doing. It's casual. Good. Casual is good. Rachel twirled pasta on her fork without lifting it. You seem different lately. Lighter, maybe? I feel different. Therapy? Ethan nodded. He'd started seeing someone 6 weeks ago. A no-nonsense woman in her 60s who called him on his shit and didn't let him hide behind business speak or deflection. They'd spent 3 sessions just unpacking Lauren before even getting to Maya. It's helping, he said. Good. Keep going. Rachel finally ate her pasta. Because I need you functional. We have a meeting next week with a startup that could be huge, and I need the old Ethan. A sharp, focused, not distracted by his savior complex. I don't have a savior complex. You absolutely do. But at least now you're managing it. They finished dinner talking about business, about normal things, and when Ethan drove home that night, he realized he'd gone the whole meal without thinking about Derek Shaw once. Progress, his therapist would say. He'd take it. The call came on a Tuesday morning in late September. Ethan was in his office reviewing quarterly projections when Jennifer Park's name appeared on his screen. He hadn't heard from her since the plea deal, and seeing her name now triggered immediate anxiety. Jennifer, what's wrong? Maybe nothing, but I wanted to give you a heads up. Papers rustled on her end. Derek Shaw violated his probation. Ethan's stomach dropped. How? Failed a drug test. Cocaine. Tested positive twice, 3 weeks apart. His probation officer filed a violation report yesterday. What does that mean for him? Means he goes back in front of a judge. The original plea deal stipulated that any violation would trigger the full 18-month sentence. So unless he's got a really good excuse, he's looking at jail time. And Maya? Shouldn't affect her at all. The restraining order stands regardless. But I wanted you to know in case Derek tries to make contact before he's taken into custody. When's the hearing? Friday. 2 days from now. Jennifer paused. Ethan, I need you to promise me something. What? That you'll stay out of it. Whatever happens at that hearing, whatever Derek does or doesn't do, it's not your problem to solve anymore. I know that. Do you? Because the last time Derek was in your orbit, you nearly destroyed your business and got yourself threatened by his lawyer. I don't want a repeat performance. There won't be. I'm done playing hero. Good. Keep it that way. She hung up, and Ethan sat there staring at his computer screen, not seeing the numbers anymore. Derek had violated probation, which meant either the anger management and counseling hadn't worked, or he'd never actually tried to change. Ethan suspected the latter. Men like Derek didn't change because a judge ordered them to. They changed when the pain of staying the same exceeded the pain of transformation, and Derek probably hadn't hit that threshold yet. His phone buzzed. Text from Maya. Maya, did you hear about Derek? Ethan, just got off the phone with Jennifer. You okay? Maya, I'm fine. Sarah already called, said the restraining order is still in effect, and I shouldn't worry. But I am worried. Ethan, why? Maya, because if he goes to jail, he's going to blame me. And when he gets out, whenever that is, he's going to come looking for revenge. Ethan, the restraining order, Maya, is a piece of paper. You think that's going to stop him if he decides he wants to hurt me? She had a point. Restraining orders worked great right up until they didn't, and then you had a dead victim and a violated court order. Ethan, what does Sarah say? Maya, that I should trust the system, that Derek will be monitored, that probation violations are taken seriously, that I'm safe. Ethan, but you don't believe her. Maya, I don't know what I believe anymore. Ethan stared at his phone, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Every instinct told him to offer help, to promise protection, to slip back into that old pattern of trying to solve her problems. But his therapist's voice echoed in his head. You can't save everyone, Ethan. Sometimes all you can do is be present. Ethan, you want to get coffee? Just talk? Maya, yeah, that would be good. They met that afternoon at a cafe in downtown Newark, neutral territory far from the diner or anywhere else that carried memories. Maya looked different than the last time he'd seen her, healthier, with color in her cheeks and confidence in the way she carried herself. She'd cut her hair short, dyed it a dark red that caught the light. You look good, Ethan said as she sat down. Thanks, I feel good. Most days. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. But then something like this happens, and I remember that he's still out there, that he still has power over my peace of mind. Sarah's right that the system will handle it. Derek violated the terms of his probation. He'll face consequences. And when those consequences are over, when he serves his time and gets out, what then? Then you'll have had 18 months to build a life he's not part of, to get stronger, more stable, more protected. Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. You make it sound so simple, like time and distance can erase 3 years of trauma. I don't think it's simple at all. I think it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but I also think you're doing it. She looked at him, really looked at him. You're different too, less, she searched for the word, less wound up, less like you're carrying the weight of the world. I'm working on it. Therapy, mostly, trying to figure out why I am the way I am. And apparently I have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility combined with unresolved guilt about past failures, or something like that. My therapist has better vocabulary for it. Sounds expensive. Worth every penny. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Newark move around them. People living their lives carrying their own invisible burdens, mostly unaware of each other's struggles. I'm scared, Maya said quietly. I hate admitting it, but I am. Every time my phone rings, every time I hear footsteps behind me, I think it's him. That he's found me. That the restraining order didn't matter. That all of this was for nothing. That's normal. That's trauma. I know, Sarah says the same thing, but knowing it's normal doesn't make it less exhausting. Ethan wanted to promise her it would get better, that the fear would fade, that Derek would disappear from her life completely. But he'd learned enough in therapy to know that empty promises helped no one. It might always be there, he said instead, that fear, that awareness. But it'll get quieter, and you'll get better at living alongside it instead of being controlled by it. You sound like my therapist. I've been spending a lot of time with mine. It rubs off. Maya smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Thank you for meeting me, for not treating me like I'm broken. You're not broken. You're rebuilding. There's a difference. Is there? Yeah, broken things stay broken. Things being rebuilt are just incomplete. She finished her coffee, checked her phone. I should go. Work starts in an hour and my boss gets pissy if I'm late. How's the job? Boring and perfect. Answer phones, file paperwork, smile at patients. No drama, no violence, just routine. I love it. They stood, and Maya hesitated before giving him a quick hug. It was the first time they'd touched beyond that brief hand contact in the shelter, and Ethan was struck by how normal it felt. Not weighted with meaning or history, just two people who'd been through something together and come out the other side. Let me know what happens Friday, she said, with Derek's hearing. I will. She left, and Ethan sat back down, ordered another coffee he didn't need, and tried to figure out why he still felt uneasy. Friday arrived with gray skies and cold wind that promised winter wasn't far off. Ethan told himself he wasn't going to the courthouse. Told himself it wasn't his business, that Jennifer had been clear about staying out of it, that his involvement would only complicate things. He went anyway. The courtroom was small, designed for probation violations and minor offenses rather than dramatic trials. Derek sat at the defense table with Castellano, looking thinner than Ethan remembered. His suit didn't fit right anymore, hanging loose at the shoulders. His hair needed cutting. Ethan slipped into the back row, hoping to go unnoticed. Derek noticed immediately. Turned in his seat, eyes finding Ethan across the courtroom. For a second, something dark flickered across his face. Rage, recognition, calculation. Then he turned back around, shoulders rigid. Castellano leaned over, whispered something. Derek shook his head. The judge entered, a severe woman in her 50s who looked like she'd heard every excuse and believed none of them. She reviewed the file quickly, then addressed Derek. Mr. Shaw, you're here for a violation of probation stemming from 2 positive drug tests for cocaine. How do you plead? Derek stood. No contest, Your Honor. Your attorney wants to speak on your behalf? Castellano rose smoothly. Your Honor, my client takes full responsibility for his lapse in judgment. He's been under enormous stress, loss of employment, dissolution of a long-term relationship, financial hardship. He made a mistake, but he's committed to his recovery and rehabilitation. The judge looked unimpressed. Mr. Shaw, you were given an opportunity to avoid jail time through probation. You agreed to specific conditions, including random drug testing. You violated those conditions. Twice. What makes you think you deserve another chance? Derek cleared his throat. I don't, Your Honor. I screwed up. But I'm asking anyway because I can't afford to lose my job. Can't afford to lose everything because of a couple bad decisions. You should have thought about that before using cocaine. I know, you're right. Derek's voice cracked slightly. I'm trying to get better. The anger management is helping. The counseling is helping. But it's hard to work on yourself when you're barely surviving financially. The judge studied him for a long moment. Mr. Shaw, I've been doing this job for 23 years. I can tell when someone's actually trying to change and when they're just saying what they think I want to hear. Right now, I can't tell which category you fall into. I'm trying, Your Honor. I swear I am. We'll see. She made a note in the file. I'm ordering immediate incarceration. You'll serve the full 18 months as outlined in your original plea agreement. Maybe that time will give you the clarity you seem to be lacking. Castellano stood. Your Honor, we'd like to request bail pending appeal. Denied. Bailiff, take Mr. Shaw into custody. Derek's face went white. Wait, Your Honor, please. But the bailiff was already moving, handcuffs out. Derek looked back at Castellano, then scanned the courtroom until his eyes found Ethan again. This is your fault, Derek said, loud enough to carry. All of this. You destroyed my life. The judge's gavel came down. Mr. Shaw, that's enough. You turned her against me. You poisoned her, made her think I was some kind of monster. Mr. Shaw, if you don't stop talking right now, I'll add contempt charges to your sentence. Derek kept going anyway, his voice rising. I loved her. I was trying to protect her, to take care of her, and you came along with your money and your self-righteousness. The bailiff had him cuffed now, was pulling him toward the side door. 18 months, Derek shouted at Ethan. 18 months and I'm coming for you. You and her both. You think a piece of paper is going to stop me? The judge stood. Add 60 days for contempt. Get him out of here. Derek was still shouting as they pulled him through the door, his words echoing in the small courtroom long after he disappeared. Ethan sat there, pulse hammering, Derek's threat ringing in his ears. Jennifer appeared next to him. You couldn't just stay away, could you? I needed to see it for myself. And now you have. Derek's going to jail for 18 months, possibly longer with the contempt charge. He won't be a problem for a while. He threatened me. And Maya. You heard him. I heard a desperate man lashing out. The threats aren't credible. He's going to be locked up. For 18 months, then what? Jennifer sat down next to him. Then he gets out on parole with strict conditions. And if he violates those conditions, he goes right back in. The system isn't perfect, Ethan, but it works more often than not. Tell that to the women who get killed by ex-boyfriends with restraining orders. I can't promise you Derek will never hurt anyone again. I can promise you that right now, today, he's being removed from society, and Maya is safer than she was yesterday. That has to be enough. Ethan wanted to argue, wanted guarantees and certainties, but Jennifer was right. This was as good as it got. Derek locked up, Maya free, consequences finally landing where they belonged. Okay, Ethan said. Okay? Okay, that's enough. Jennifer studied him. You really believe that? I'm trying to. She stood, gathered her briefcase. Keep trying. And Ethan, don't come to any more hearings. Let the system do its job without an audience. She left, and Ethan sat alone in the empty courtroom, Derek's words still echoing. 18 months, and I'm coming for you. He pulled out his phone, texted Maya. Ethan, Derek got 18 months. He's being taken into custody now. Maya, thank God. Sarah just called and told me. How are you? Ethan, I'm okay. He threatened us both on his way out. Said when he gets released, he's coming for us. Maya, of course he did. That's what he does. Makes threats. Tries to control through fear. Ethan, you're not scared? Maya, I'm terrified, but I've been terrified for 3 years. At least now I have 18 months to figure out how to stop being terrified. Ethan, if you need anything... Maya, I know, thank you, but I think what I need right now is to prove to myself I can handle this without help. Does that make sense? Ethan, yeah, it does. Maya, good. I'll check in soon. And Ethan, stop going to Derek's hearings. It's not healthy for either of us. She was right. Jennifer was right. Even Rachel would be right if she knew he'd gone to the courthouse. Ethan, understood. Take care of yourself. Maya, you too. Ethan drove back to his office and threw himself into work, determined to let this be the end of it. The next 6 months were a study in moving forward. Ethan's business thrived. Rachel closed 3 major deals and their portfolio grew by 40%. The threatened lawsuit from Castellano officially died when Derek went to prison. Hard to sue for harassment when your client was in jail for violating probation. Maya sent occasional updates. She got promoted at the dental office, moved into a better apartment, started taking night classes at community college. Her texts became less about Derek and more about her life, which Ethan took as progress. His therapy continued. They'd moved past Lauren and Maya, digging into deeper patterns. Why Ethan felt responsible for fixing things that weren't his to fix. Why he equated his worth with his usefulness to others. Why he couldn't just let people struggle without trying to save them. It was uncomfortable work, peeling back layers he'd spent years building. But it was necessary. On a Tuesday in March, nearly a year after Derek's arrest, Ethan got a call from Jennifer Park. We have a problem. Ethan's chest tightened. What kind of problem? Derek Shaw is getting out early. Good behavior, overcrowding, some bureaucratic nonsense about nonviolent offenders. He's being released next month. He threatened us in open court. That's not good behavior. The contempt charge got him 60 days, which he served. The rest of his sentence is being commuted. I'm sorry, Ethan. The system's broken sometimes. Does Maya know? I'm calling her next, but I wanted to give you a heads up first. The restraining order is still in effect, and Derek's parole conditions are strict. But he's going to be out there, free, with nothing stopping him from coming after us except a piece of paper and his own self-control. which is better than nothing. Ethan wasn't sure he agreed, but arguing wouldn't change anything. He called Maya immediately after Jennifer hung up. I already know, Maya said before he could speak. Sarah just told me. Derek's getting out in 4 weeks. How are you? Honestly, I don't know yet. Part of me knew this was coming. He wasn't going to stay locked up forever, but I thought I'd have more time. You want to leave town? I can help you relocate, start over somewhere he'd never find you. And spend the rest of my life running, looking over my shoulder, wondering if today's the day he tracks me down. Maya's voice was steady. No, I'm done running. I'm done letting him control my life. Maya, I know what you're going to say. That it's dangerous, that I'm being stubborn, that Derek's not going to just let this go. And you're right about all of it, but I can't keep living in fear. At some point, I have to stand my ground. Standing your ground doesn't help if you're dead. Maybe not, but at least I'll die on my feet instead of on my knees. The words landed like ice water. Don't talk like that, Ethan said. Why not? It's the truth. Derek might kill me. He might not. But I'm not going to give up the life I've built because of what he might do. I'm just not. Ethan wanted to argue, to convince her to be reasonable, to accept help, but he recognized this tone in her voice. She'd made her decision, and nothing he said would change it. Okay, he said finally, but at least let me help you be prepared. Security system for your apartment, self-defense classes, whatever you need to feel safer. I already have a security system, and I've been taking Krav Maga for 6 months. Good. That's good. Ethan paused. Just promise me you'll be careful, that you won't take unnecessary risks. I promise. And Ethan, thank you for caring, but you need to let me handle this my own way. I'm trying. Try harder. She hung up, and Ethan sat there feeling helpless and frustrated and also weirdly proud. Maya had gone from a terrified woman hiding bruises to someone willing to stand her ground against her abuser. That took strength most people didn't have. He just hoped that strength would be enough. Derek Shaw was released from county lockup on April 15th, 3 weeks earlier than projected. Ethan found out from a news alert he'd set up months ago, back when Derek's case was still making local headlines. He forwarded the alert to Maya, got back a simple thumbs up. No panic, no fear, just acknowledgement. 2 days later, Sarah Chen called. Maya's missing. Ethan's world tilted. What do you mean, missing? She didn't show up for work yesterday. Didn't answer her phone. I went by her apartment. Door was locked. No signs of forced entry, but she's not there. Her car's still in the lot. Her purse is on the kitchen counter. It's like she just vanished. Have you called the police? They filed a report but said there's no evidence of foul play. An adult has the right to disappear if they want to. They won't start investigating unless there's proof of violence or coercion. Derek. It has to be Derek. I thought so too, but his parole officer confirmed he's been at his sister's house since his release. Electronic monitoring, regular check-ins, the whole thing. He hasn't left except for work and court-ordered counseling. Then where the hell is she? I don't know. That's why I'm calling. Do you have any idea where she might go? Anywhere she mentioned feeling safe, anyone she might turn to? Ethan's mind raced through conversations, texts, any detail Maya might have shared. But their relationship had been built on crisis, not intimacy. He didn't know her favorite places, her friends, her routines beyond what Sarah had shared. Nothing, he said. I don't know where she'd go. Okay. Well, if you hear from her, call me immediately. I'm worried. Ethan spent the next 3 hours calling everyone he could think of. Jennifer Park, who hadn't heard from Maya. Eddie at the diner, who said Maya hadn't been back since she left Derek. Even Marcus, the PI, who'd long since moved on to other cases. Nothing. No one had seen her, heard from her, knew anything. At 8 p.m., Ethan's phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? It's me. Maya's voice, quiet but steady. Relief crashed through him. Where are you? Sarah's been looking for you. The police filed a report. I know. I'm sorry. I should have told someone, but I needed to disappear for a few days. Why? What happened? Derek happened. Not directly. He hasn't violated the restraining order, hasn't come near me. But I saw him at the grocery store. He was in the checkout line and he looked right at me, smiled, like he knew exactly what he was doing. Did he say anything? Didn't have to, The smile said everything, that he knows where I live, where I work, where I shop, that the restraining order is just paper, that he can get to me whenever he wants. So you ran. I strategically relocated. A bitter laugh. I'm at a motel 2 towns over, trying to figure out my next move. I can't go back to my apartment. It doesn't feel safe anymore. Can't keep my job if I'm too terrified to leave the house. Can't build a life when I'm constantly looking over my shoulder. Come stay with me, Ethan said without thinking. My apartment building has security, doorman, cameras everywhere. You'd be safe while you figure things out. Ethan, just temporarily. A week, maybe 2, until we can find you a better long-term solution. That's exactly what I was trying to avoid. Depending on someone else, letting my problems become their problems. You're not a problem. You're someone who needs help. There's a difference. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Okay, but just for a week, and I'm paying rent. You don't have to… Yes, I do. I need to contribute, need to feel like I'm not charity, please. Okay, text me the motel address. I'll come get you. He picked her up an hour later from a cheap motel off Route 21, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. Maya had one small suitcase and a backpack, everything she owned that mattered condensed into 2 bags. She climbed into his car looking exhausted, defeated in ways the bruises from Derek had never quite managed. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me yet. My apartment's nice, but I'm a terrible roommate. I work late. I'm obsessive about coffee. And I talk to myself when I'm thinking through problems. I can live with that. They drove through Newark in comfortable silence, and Ethan realized this was what Maya needed. Not saving, not rescuing, just someone willing to offer shelter while she found her footing. His apartment occupied the top floor of a converted warehouse in the Ironbound, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. Security required a key card for the elevator and another for his floor. The doorman, a retired cop named Frank, nodded to them as they entered. Guest? Frank asked. My friend Maya. She'll be staying for a bit. Can you add her to the approved list? No problem. I'll need ID for the system. Maya handed over her driver's license, and Frank copied down the information efficiently. In the elevator, Maya leaned against the wall. This is really nice of you. It's what decent people do. Most people aren't decent. Then I guess we found each other at the right time. The apartment was sparse but comfortable. Minimalist furniture, carefully chosen art, the living space of someone who had money but no interest in showing it off. Maya stood in the middle of the living room, taking it in. Guest room's down that hall, Ethan said, pointing. Bathrooms attached. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen. And if Derek somehow gets past building security, Frank will call the cops before he makes it to the elevator. You really think I'm safe here? Safer than a motel off Route 21. She smiled, genuinely this time. Fair point. Maya settled into the guest room and Ethan gave her space, retreating to his home office to catch up on work he'd been neglecting. Around 11, he heard the shower running, then silence. The week passed quietly. Maya was a considerate house guest, cleaning up after herself, staying out of his way, occasionally making coffee that was actually better than his own. She spent her days job hunting online and attending virtual therapy sessions Sarah had set up. Ethan found himself enjoying the company. His apartment had always felt too big, too empty. Having someone else there made it feel less like a showpiece and more like a home. On day 5, Maya came into the kitchen while Ethan was making breakfast. I got a job offer, she said. That's great. Where? Medical office in Montclair. Billing specialist. Better pay than my last job, better hours, and it's 30 minutes from Derek's last known address. You taking it? I want to, but I'd need to find an apartment in that area, which means moving, which means Derek could track me down again. She poured herself coffee. I'm tired of running, Ethan. I'm so tired. Then stop running. Easy for you to say. You're not the one he's obsessed with. No, but I'm the one he threatened in open court. And I'm not running either. I'm just being smart about it. Ethan flipped an egg. You take the job, you find an apartment with good security, you install cameras and alarms, you vary your routine. You live your life, but you stay aware. That's not running. That's adapting. Maya considered this. Sarah said something similar, that I can't let Derek determine where I live and work just by existing. And Sarah's smart. She is. Maya took a sip of coffee. Okay, I'll take the job and I'll find an apartment, but I'm going to need help. I know a good real estate agent, and I'm happy to co-sign a lease if that helps. You've already done too much. Let me decide what's too much. She smiled. You're stubborn. So are you. We matched. 3 weeks later, Maya moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Montclair with security cameras, a doorman, and neighbors who'd been vetted by Mike Torres, Ethan's security consultant. Her new job was demanding but rewarding, and she settled into a routine that didn't include fear as a constant companion. Derek stayed away. His parole officer reported that he was attending his counseling sessions, maintaining employment, and following all conditions of his release. The restraining order remained in effect, and as far as anyone could tell, he was abiding by it. Ethan wanted to believe that meant Derek had moved on, had found whatever redemption was possible for someone like him. But he knew better. Abusers didn't change because a judge ordered them to. They changed when the cost of their behavior exceeded the benefit. And for Derek, the cost hadn't been high enough. The call came on a Tuesday in June, 14 months after Derek's arrest, 6 months after his release. Jennifer Park, her voice tight with urgency. Derek's dead. Ethan's hand tightened on the phone. What? Car accident. He ran a red light, got T-boned by a delivery truck, died at the scene. When? Last night. His sister ID'd the body this morning. I wanted to tell you before you heard it on the news. Ethan sat down trying to process. Does Maya know? Sarah's with her now. It's complicated. Relief and guilt and a lot of other things. Yeah, I bet. Ethan, this is over now. Really over. Derek can't hurt anyone anymore. You can both move on. Okay. You don't sound convinced. He stopped, not sure how to articulate what he was feeling. It feels too easy, too convenient. Sometimes bad people die in random accidents. That's not cosmic justice, it's just statistics. I know, you're right. Good. Now go live your life and stop looking for problems that don't exist anymore. She hung up, and Ethan sat there in his office, staring at nothing. Derek was dead. The threat was over. Maya was safe. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like something left unfinished. He drove to Maya's apartment without calling first, hoping she'd forgive the intrusion. She answered the door with red eyes and a tissue in hand, Sarah sitting on the couch behind her. You heard, Maya said. Jennifer called. Can I come in? Of course. Sarah gave them space, moving to the kitchen to make tea no one would drink. Ethan sat across from Maya, watching her struggle with emotions that didn't have names. I should be relieved, she said finally. He's gone. I'm safe. It's everything I wanted. But instead I just feel empty. Like I spent so long being afraid of him that without that fear, I don't know who I am. You're the woman who survived 3 years of abuse, got out, rebuilt her life, and refused to let her abuser define her. That's who you are. But what if that's not enough? What if I spent so long being a victim that I don't know how to just be a person? Then you learn. One day at a time, one choice at a time. You figure out who Maya Reed is when she's not surviving Derek Shaw. She wiped her eyes. And if it turns out I'm boring, just some normal person with a normal job and a normal life, then you'll be the luckiest person alive. Because boring and normal is what most people would kill for. Maya laughed through her tears. When did you get so wise? Expensive therapy and a lot of mistakes. They sat together while Sarah made tea while the afternoon sun slanted through the windows, while somewhere across town Derek Shaw's body was processed by the machinery of death, autopsy, paperwork, arrangements. And slowly, the weight Ethan had been carrying since that first morning in the diner began to lift. 6 months later, on a cold December morning, Ethan walked into the diner where it all started. Eddie was still working the grill. The purple-haired waitress had been replaced by someone new, but the vinyl booth still had the same tiers. The coffee still tasted burnt, and the whole place still smelled like yesterday's grease. Ethan took his usual booth and waited. Maya arrived 10 minutes later, wearing a coat she'd bought with her first real paycheck and carrying confidence like it belonged to her. She slid into the seat across from him, ordered coffee from a waitress who didn't recognize either of them. I can't believe you actually still come here, Maya said. The eggs are good. The eggs are terrible. You come here because you're sentimental. Maybe. They ordered breakfast and fell into easy conversation. Her job, his business, the normal rhythms of people who'd been through hell together and somehow made it out intact. I'm thinking about going back to school, Maya said. Social work, maybe? Help other people get out of bad situations. You'd be good at that. I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm still too close to it, Like I haven't healed enough to help anyone else heal. Or maybe you understand it in ways someone who's never lived it never could. She considered this. Maybe. Eddie brought their food personally, set it down with a nod of recognition. Good to see you two, he said. Especially together. Not running from anything. Just having breakfast, Maya said. Best kind. Eddie returned to his grill. They ate in comfortable silence, and Ethan thought about all the ways this story could have ended. Maya dead, Derek free, Ethan consumed by guilt that never resolved. But instead they'd gotten this. An ordinary breakfast in an ordinary diner, two people who'd survived and were learning to do more than survive. You ever think about that first morning? Maya asked, when you noticed the bruises. Sometimes. You ever regret getting involved? Ethan thought about the surveillance, the confrontations, the mistakes, about the cost to his business, his peace of mind, his certainty that he knew what he was doing, about Lauren's funeral and the guilt that had driven him to places he shouldn't have gone. No, he said honestly. I regret how I did it, but not that I did it. Good. Because for what it's worth, I'm glad you're stubborn and obsessive and incapable of minding your own business. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. They finished breakfast, split the check despite Ethan's protests, and walked out into cold December air that felt clean and new. Same time next month? Maya asked. I'll be here. She hugged him, quick and genuine, then walked to her car and drove away, toward her job, her apartment, her life that belonged entirely to her. Ethan stood there for a moment, watching Newark wake up around him, the city where he'd built his business, where he'd failed and succeeded and learned to tell the difference, where he'd tried to save someone and learned that salvation was something people had to choose for themselves, where he'd finally, impossibly, started to forgive himself. He got in his car, placed the wooden box Maya had made on the passenger seat where he could see it, and drove toward whatever came next. The past was closed, the ending was theirs. And for the first time in 7 years, that was enough.